sound. Committee Room 29, 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 Sound. Committee Room 29.
Okay, so welcome everyone this morning. Happy New Year to both members and anyone watching online. I think we're just still within that window to perhaps say that to each other. We haven't seen each other for a while. I'm just going to provide a quick overview of today's business and then we'll start working through the meeting. So today the committee will receive oral evidence from the Department for Infrastructure on the Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel. We will receive oral evidence from the Department for Infrastructure on the active travel delivery plan. We will consider correspondence from the Department for Infrastructure on its intention to commence a public consultation arising from the findings of the speed limit review. We will consider a further response in relation to the Water Sustainable Drainage and Flood Management Bill and consider the proposed timetabling for the scheduling of evidence. We will consider one SR that is subject to Assembly procedure and two SRs that are not subject to Assembly procedure. And finally, consider two proposals for statutory rules that are not subject to SL1s that are not subject to Assembly procedure. I'd just like to inform anyone in attendance in the meeting in the public gallery that they are allowed to use mobile devices. However, you should not take any recordings or photographs of the meeting. And if members are content, we will proceed through the agenda. Okay, apologies. Do we have any apologies? That sounds like none. We have full team. Number 2 is declarations of interests. Would any member have an interest that they wish to declare?
Sure, obviously with the PSC stuff today, and I'm a member of the PSC committee. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Cathal.
Likewise, Chair, just to PAC as well. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's fine. And that takes us to item 3, which is chairperson's business. We got a couple in here. At page 6, we have guidance regarding accessibility standards for temporary street work gaps in Northern Ireland. And you'll see, I think the photos are there, and I'm just going to flick across them. You'll see some quite large signs. I believe that is Dundela Avenue. This was sent in, these pictures and the following was sent in to me by Councillor Ruth Brooks from Belfast City Council, who's a party colleague of mine. And Ruth noticed this, I think, on our way to work, and I wanted to highlight it up to us. And you can see from the signs there, clearly there's some road works going on. The tenor of really the correspondence in from Ruth's angle was, how would a disabled person get along that footpath? I think it's really the essence of it, and there is no way to do that. And you'll see then following on, if someone's in a wheelchair, for example, on that, you don't want to, they shouldn't have to cross a road, particularly a busy one, because they're on a public footpath. So there was some further guidance there that was included, and called, it's page 6 there, accessibility standards for temporary street works, and then a request that DFI undertake a review of its temporary street works guidance. So look, I mean, it's up to the committee what they want to do with this. I did think it was, I wasn't aware this really happened, but in light of road safety and obviously people who are in wheelchairs not feeling that they, when this happens, that they just can't, what do? They just take their wheelchair onto the road or whatever. There's a request there regarding reviewing temporary street work guidance. It's whether the committee are minded to write to the department and ask where the department is on some of this stuff. Other UK regions have strengthened standards around this, and we are still relying, as far as I'm aware, on the older Red Book. But look, it's up to committee. I'm just flagging it up. Cathal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year to you and
to
all
you
the
also.
members and the staff as well. Chair, listen, I don't disagree. Obviously, there's a request there, but I would like a wee update from the department first to see where they're at, and then we'll see whether or not, because they're asking obviously for a review. Yeah. So let's find out where the department is first, and then if we decide then to look at it, or even may I suggest we look at it as a committee at some point as well. So let's find out where the department are. But that's what I would support.
No, and really, I may not have made a very. I mean, that's all I'm asking, that we actually sort of find out where the department is on it. Do you have other views, Harry?
Yep. No, it'd just be interesting to see where the actual law is on it. Looking at the pictures, it's certainly, if the road and left's closed, there'd be no reason why the signs couldn't be on the left-hand lane then, because it's turning left, obviously, and just be interesting to see. I would say it's probably a one-off mistake where they've just been set up there, but
You would hope so. Absolutely. No, that's fine. No,
Okay,
thank you. Peter.
This is just off Dundela. It's around the corner from my constituency office, and I know this stretch really well because I got the drop curbs in there with a resident who used that stretch quite regularly in his wheelchair. So the idea that he would come to this, see the drop curb that he got, helps get it installed, and then it's forced onto the road anyway. It's just a bit of a nonsense. So yeah, fully supportive of a review and find out a bit more.
All right.
is it still ongoing? I mean, are they still out there?
I'm not sure. This was. I know that I think we considered this at our last meeting in December, but at that point in time, I don't think committee members had the detail that they had now, and it wasn't fair for me to ask committee to do something on stuff they hadn't really seen. So I'm honestly not sure, but it certainly sounds like Andrew.
Well, sorry.
No, you're okay.
I don't want to interrupt you, Chair.
I was going to say, I'll finish off my sentence and let you come in. I mean, certainly, just to be clear, all I think we should be doing at this point in time is asking for DFI for some sort of response to it, and I'm happy with that. We've got to give the department its place to sort of say, well, what do you think about this, and so forth.
No,
Andrew?
well, just to echo what was been said before, but it's certainly not just a East Belfast Dundela issue. It's prolific everywhere, be it roadworks, cars, partially sighted people, wheelchair users. Peter is going to find out about the pushing the pram, so he is as well. The whole thing. It's prolific, to be fair. So 100%.
So certainly from the correspondence we got in there from Ruth, she seems to indicate, and we'll find out, that we seem to be behind the curve in terms of the rest of the UK on protections for folk who are using pavements, who are, as you said, pushing buggies or in wheelchairs. So if committee are content, in the first instance, we just write to the department and ask what they think. Or,
Chair,
yeah, happy enough. Yeah.
Just to flag up, Chair, PAC has primacy on the opening of roads for utilities at the moment. I believe there's an ongoing investigation, but this should be okay, but I will check with the PAC clerk.
That's fine. That's great. Thank you. The second one in Chair's business is something that was sent in to me from Belfast 89. Members can read this. It was from a guy called Joe, just clicking down, Joe McCormack, and it's on pages 15 and 16. Members may have a view on this. It's core, and it's obviously on things like this, there are very specific procurement rules that the department have to follow. Do members have any views on the core that we have in from Joe? My suggestion will be he probably should engage with the department on this, but I am open to any views that members have.
Sure.
Peter?
I think he contacted a lot of MLAs, and certainly within the Alliance Party he did, because there was a lot of conversation about it, and I think we just directed him to the press office. So I think things are now in motion on his end, that there is dialogue now with DFI, so I don't think there's anything to do from a committee perspective. Maybe he'll come back, but I think presently he's quite satisfied.
I think if if committee are happy enough, we just get back to Joe and say that, look, obviously committee considered it, but from our POV, he should probably contact the department directly regarding it, and they can engage with him and explain the context. So our members agree with that?
Agreed.
Yep. Okay. That's all I have. Draft minutes are on page 18, and they are of our meeting on the 10th of December. And I just need committee agreement that they are happy and content that they are a true and accurate reflection of that meeting. And if they are, I will sign the minutes. People happy enough?
Agreed. Sure.
Okay. That's brilliant. Takes us on to 5, which is matter arising. Does anyone have anything that they want to flag up from the last meeting? Nope, that's okay. Which takes us on to correspondence and page 31. And if you give me just 1 wee second, I'll flick to it. Yeah, and there has been plenty. So the correspondence memos at 31, I will flag up some, and then I will open up to the floor for anyone who has anything else they want to raise out of any of that core before we note the extra. So everyone will get their say on this, but that's probably the best way because we have a lot of it, as you will note. First one for me is page 31, which is the response from the Minister regarding the Egyptian Arts billboard, which obviously we have, committee has dealt with in some detail. Just on this one, it's worth flagging up to committee that there is a private members motion that will be debated, I think, next week on this. So just for transparency, it's worth mentioning that. So we have the core back from the Minister, I think on page 37, and the two lines that sort of stuck out for me was my department has requested that the billboard be removed on 2 separate occasions, once on the 18th of August 2023 and again on the 5th of November 2025. However, the Minister doesn't actually say who that request was directed towards, despite the fact that that was what the committee actually asked. And also then at the end of that page, my department has, as outlined, sought the removal of the billboard on 2 separate occasions, once by email and once by letter. Look, this is fairly long running. I did some research, and this is all public domain stuff. On the 8th of October 2023, at that point there were no ministers in place. DFI spokesman said the department had contacted Sinn Féin regarding the removal of the billboard on DFI property at the Camlock Road roundabout. Sinn Féin has acknowledged the department's request to remove the billboard on DFI property at Egyptian Arch. However, the billboard has not yet been removed. And then in June of 2025, the DFI minister said, in response to a question in the Assembly, I do not believe the current billboard is a Sinn Féin one. I'm not sure the story could get any more bizarre, but it seems to be. And the minister's statement, leaving aside the fact that the committee asked specifically 2 questions and the minister answered only one of them, it leaves me with more questions than it actually answers. So some of those questions are, was the old billboard a Sinn Féin one? And was she, as a Newry and Armagh Sinn Féin MLA, one of the people responsible for erecting it? Because she's a long-standing Sinn Féin Newry and Armagh MLA. How does she know the current one is not a Sinn Féin one? And who does she believe actually owns it? Because clearly the minister knows something about this. Where did she get the information to know that it had been transferred, if I can put it that, because it's illegal, but transferred in terms of ownership? And does she believe, and I think the committee's view is that this billboard should not be there, and obviously it was erected illegally, does she believe it should be removed? So look, I had, in terms of this, everyone knows what's on the billboard. What's on the billboard doesn't matter. Some people on the committee will agree with what's on the billboard and some people will not. However, what this committee does know is that the minister is responsible for planning enforcement, and I have the document here, overview of planning enforcement responsibilities, October 26. 1.1, planning permission is required for all development that takes place. 1.2, effective enforcement is therefore essential to ensure that the credibility and integrity of the planning system is not undermined. And my difficulty with this is that it does appear that the minister who is responsible for this area is not doing the right thing in terms of taking the sign down or taking action on it. And I think when we boil it all down, I think everyone probably knows that on this committee, and yet nothing is happening. So separately, I think we should ask the minister those questions and see what she says. I would be suggesting, and everyone will get a chance to speak on this if they wish, I would be suggesting that we pose those questions and any additional ones to the minister. I would be asking that the correspondence that she refers to is provided to this committee. Separately, I will be, and it's shocking that I have to do this as chair of a committee, but I don't, given the back and forth that we've had in this, I don't have confidence that we're going to get that information. I will, as an individual MLA, FOI the department to try and get that correspondence. If I get it, I will bring it to the committee. I would hope that the department don't disregard and disrespect this committee to the level that a committee chair has to FOI a department to get the information it requires, because this committee is a place for scrutiny of that minister and of that department. And I would also just mention to committee that we do have powers under Section 44 of the Northern Ireland Act to compel. Again, those are standing powers. They've been used very sparingly. Just to remind committee members, we do have those powers as well. But this is not, clearly the story is not going away. I will park it there and I will see if anyone else wants to speak on it. John.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure others will want to speak on this. Just to say I firmly support your path on this. I think it's deeply frustrating for the committee that we're going round on circles on this matter. The Minister says that no assessment or survey is going to be carried out, but that it poses a low risk to road safety. In my opinion, it still poses a risk to road safety. It's also a breach of planning. The previous Minister had written to the owners, and we're guessing now who they might be, but I think we all know who they are. I'm just totally exacerbated. If it was a business, a private business, or potentially another political party or another political message, it is my firm belief that enforcement would have been carried out. Yeah. And I am well aware of businesses in my area and other areas who have put up signage in an attempt to promote their small business, and not only has that signage been confiscated, they have been fined as a result of a breach of planning. Yet this, because it's a political message that maybe the Minister supports, I don't know, I'm guessing, we haven't had the clarity on that, but I would assume that's the case, no action has been taken. I just find it's just totally exacerbating. So if we don't get the answers, I would totally support you in that quest to FOI the information, and I think the department has a duty now to step in and to take action where required to remove it, because it's just, how long is too long, in my opinion.
Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I'm thinking back to when this first came up, and I don't want to make a political football of it, and then the Gary Owen went up and the high ball went up, and we're all now quick rock ball and all the rest of it. Just, you said section 44 there, compel, is that, what was the clarification? Compelling what? Sorry, compelling?
Okay, so section 44 of the Northern Ireland Act, it's a complicated piece of legislation, Andrew, but it means that if we wish to, we eventually can compel officials to come to give oral evidence, and I believe release documentation regarding it. It's a very rarely used power, and it would only be done in a situation where a committee felt deeply frustrated by a lack of engagement by the department it was scrutinising. You can go and look it up.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, and just, I will, but I mean, just since you're on the subject, does that compel the Minister to come as well, or just departmental officials, or what's?
In theory, it can compel anybody. It is rarely used.
Okay. Listen, I'm not sure. Well, I know it's on the billboard as of this morning. I'm not sure if that changes. I don't think it does terribly. So a lot of the parameters around this, I think the main parameter for me, other people, is it's quite a substantial structure. It is on public land. Public property, whatever way you want to call it, and there doesn't seem to appear to be permissions. Listen, I think that is what it is, but again, as I've said before, there is a wider issue here. We do have a wide issue around things of not permissible on public property, and I have zero problem discussing that in the specifics and in the wider genealogy of things that maybe don't have permission, because lots of things do have permission, and again, as someone with a low giggle threshold but high tolerance threshold, I'm no problem tolerating things that have permissions as long as it's there in the first place. But if there's we can not, what's the word? We can say this is a single issue event, but it's not really. But yeah, happy to follow what you've suggested, Chair.
I think the thing that distinguishes this, Andrew, is the fact that it's a very clear and obvious linkage. It's a minister responsible for planning enforcement, and she has duties and responsibilities that are clearly outlined. That I think distinguish it. But
100%, Chair.
There's a wider point.
But there is. But
I accept the wider
point. Say
point.
it's very specific, but it's more than that. We do a dance every year about things that aren't supposed to be on things, and we can't get away from that. And I will not be getting away from that. And we will not maybe rehearse our Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday motion, Monday motion. I can't quite mind, but
I'm not sure.
We're doing enough of a dance here without doing a dance then too. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, Andrew, thank you. Anyone else? I'll take Harry and then Justin.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think it's fair to ask reasonable questions on this billboard or any other billboard deemed to possibly have been erected illegally. So, yep, fair enough to ask the questions.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.
Justin?
Just remember what we're talking about here, folks. We're talking about an illegally erected Sinn Féin billboard. The Minister has disrespected this committee by the answers that she's provided, or the non-answers that she has provided. Is that acceptable? Not in my mind. It also demonstrates that Sinn Féin are a party of lawlessness, who are able and willing to break the law and continue breaking the law and do nothing about it. Even though they're being held to task by the committee of this Assembly, they're happy to proceed on that basis. The party of lawlessness. The committee have sought confirmation whether this billboard is on infrastructure, Department for Infrastructure land. It appears to be. Yes or no? The committee has asked if the department has requested removal of this billboard, and if so, to whom. She says it has been requested, removal has been requested to her office in Uri. Was it sought from her specifically, or was it from another MLA in South in Uri Armagh? I don't know. Could you confirm who actually received the correspondence from the department to remove the illegally erected Sinn Féin billboard at the Egyptian Arch? What plans have they got to remove the billboard? We asked. No plans. There's no risk posed. What assessment was done to actually establish the level of risk? Was it an A assessment? If there's a catastrophic failure of this billboard and somebody is killed or injured, who's responsible? Is the Department for Infrastructure responsible, or is Sinn Féin corporate responsible? Could that question be posed to the Minister, please? Mm-hmm. The Minister has also been asked what engagements has she had with TransLink, and I actually received a calendar from TransLink pre-Christmas as a safety calendar, and there was actually completely coincidentally, there was a picture of Craigmore Viaduct, which is 100 metres up the line, with the statement, any works planned within 50 metres of a railway should be reported to TransLink's third-party works team. This enables high mitigation to ensure the safety of train operations. Did Sinn Féin seek permission to work within 50 metres of the main railway line on this island before erecting their illegal billboard? Was that permission sought? Could we ask that question, please, for the Minister? That's another question to add to the ongoing list of questions that have to be asked. What sanctions are available to the department if Sinn Féin ignore the enforcement? What sanctions are available? Or the Canadians continue to ignore enforcement from the Minister's department on the Minister's party? Advertising standards. Now, the message on the billboard, I 100% concur with the message on it now. I concurred on the All Ireland, New Ireland is for All. I 100% confer and support. What happens if they put up their balaclavas and say these are heroes? Is that then who controls the advertising standards on that billboard? Precedents. Now in South Belfast, right, you can erect a stop sign or a traffic control sign by a political party might do so, but they're immediately asked to remove it. But in Uri Armagh, hold on, we have Sinn Féin carry boards at every junction, every gap in the hedge in South Armagh has a Sinn Féin carry board, illegally erected. But so that they also now need to enhance that with an illegally erected billboard, JC the co-standard. I just think it's not acceptable. I think it's double standards. I think it's what goes in one area doesn't go in another area, and there needs to be consistency across the board, consistency applied, and the precedents this actually sets out for small businesses who are pilloried by the department if they erect a sign in their own place on their premises. But yet the same department is able to erect, the same department controlled by a Sinn Féin minister is able to erect an illegal Sinn Féin billboard, but that's okay, with no heavy-handed enforcement on that front. I think it's mind-boggling, but it clearly demonstrates Sinn Féin are a party of lawlessness.
Justin, don't worry. Michael has been scribbling beside me here, and I think got all those. Militia.
Chair, can you all hear me?
Oh yes, absolutely. Militia, go ahead.
Yeah, just Chair, can I state quite clearly, I find it totally offensive, the last member's statement, and that he's accusing me and my party as being a party of lawlessness. I am not lawless in any respect whatsoever. And I think that the issue, as you have actually outlined it, and the likes of it may have many different opinions not on it, but to sit here and listen to that type of allegation being made by a party, by a member of another party, Chair, I was a wee bit disappointed that you hadn't intervened yourself at a much earlier stage and pointed that out to the member.
Thank you for that, Militia. I mean, look, there's a range of views on committee on this. I would step in if there were personal comments to anyone. I wouldn't tolerate that at committee. I've heard that on occasion on other committees, directed especially towards officials. I'm not going to comment on Justin's views particularly, but I would just say that, you know, he is referencing a party and not an individual. It's not a personal attack on anyone. And you know, Justin knows those views. I don't own them. It's Justin speaking there, but I want to just make that point. But thank you, Militia, for. Do you want to come back?
I just want to come back on
Sure.
that it's easy for one to say, well, okay, one is making a statement about a party per se. I am a member of a party, and when I'm being accused of being lawless, I find that offensive. And I have to say quite clearly that what I was sitting listening to there was actually bile, a type of bile that I listen to too often from the same member.
And look, Militia, it's important that everyone gets to share these views, and everyone on this committee will get a chance to obviously oppose them or counter them if they don't agree with them. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Just to concur, I suppose, with some of the points made in the earlier part of the discussion as well, just around, you know, I do think to re-echo, there is still questions to answer. I still think that this letter doesn't go far enough, and as you rightly pointed out as well, and those were the key lines to me, that the fact that the department has requested the billboard be removed on 2 separate occasions, so it's either illegal or it's legal, and the fact that they have done that twice shows clearly that it is unlawful and that action is needed. It's clear that the Minister must be ignoring the advice of the department officials as well, which is concerning to me. As you rightly highlight, we're here to scrutinise the work of the department and the Minister, and there's clearly an issue here where the Minister is not following the line of her officials, given that she is ignoring what the officials have requested. And the precedent issue has been mentioned by a few members too, and you know, we all have the evidence of small businesses being clamped down regularly around their signage requirements, and it does send out a very wrong and confusing message as well to the public out there. You know, that it's one rule for one and another rule for those in authority. So I think that there's certainly questions to answer, and I think it's important that we continue to do our work here, you know, and make every effort to have this matter resolved properly, Chair.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Al.
Thank you, Chair. And obviously not going to rehearse what's been said. Members are entitled to have their opinion and say whatever, but just for yourselves, I mean, obviously, Chair, in the past we've asked questions, so we get answers and we're not content with them, so we interpret them whatever way we wish, but you've suggested a direction to travel there in terms of some more questions. So as this committee's business, that's the proper way to go about it. So all being said, I'm happy enough if that's the members of the committee, the majority of the committee wants to go that way. I'm happy enough to go that. But I do think members should be careful with some of the language at times with the use, but they're entitled to their opinions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Cathal. Anyone else on this one? Okay. So I'm going to hand over to Michael, whose hand is now sore. Go ahead, Michael.
So it's my understanding, if members are in agreement, to write back to the Minister to ask for all correspondence sent and received in relation to the billboard, to ask who is responsible if there is a catastrophic failure of the billboard, to ask whether permission was sought either from the department or from TransLink, what sanctions are available for a breach of planning law in this case, if it is found to be such. In terms of advertising standards, who would control what's on the billboard, and to ask for any precedents of a similar nature.
Are members content to...
Oh, sorry, what are the implications of the precedence being set by the department breaking the law it sets to enforce? The main party of the department breaking the law that it is charged with enforcing.
So implications of precedence of the current situation with the billboard.
Members agreed?
Agreed.
Great. Okay.
Could we say the word "nose" question before they're fired through, please? Can you email them out, please?
Yes. Yep, certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay, page 44, we have a response from the Minister for Infrastructure to Committee Core regarding the introduction of subordinate legislation to deal with the issue of pavement parking. I'm just asking, short of anyone else wanting to raise something on this one, seek agreement to note and schedule oral evidence at a suitable date to consider these proposals. Committee happy enough with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. That's agreed. At page 45, we have a response from the Minister to Committee Core requesting further clarification on subordinate legislation relating to rail safety and associated timeframe for its introduction. And I again need committee agreement to note and schedule oral evidence at a suitable time for these proposals. Are committee agreed? Yeah. Okay. Page 46, we have a response from the Minister to committee correspondence for requesting an update on the transformation fund. On that one, I would like to seek committee agreement to write to the department to request a quarterly update on the appointed persons project. Unless anyone has anything else on that, our committee agreed.
Agreed.
Yep. At page 48, we have a response from the Minister for Infrastructure to Committee Core on evidence highlighted in the course of the December monitoring round. Evidence on the 3rd of December. I just need committee agreement to note and schedule an evidence session in the forward work plan on major capital following the conclusion of the High Court proceedings, which we're all very aware of. Has anyone got anyone saying on that, or are committee agreed to that?
Content, Chair.
Content, okay. Just on that one, Michael, do we have any sort of idea or update when those High Court proceedings might finish, or have they been pushed back?
So there's an element of the appeal that's been sent back to the High Court for reconsideration.
Okay.
So, but I will see if I can get a date for the rest of the proceedings.
That's fine. Great. Okay. At page 56, we have a response from the Minister for Infrastructure to Committee Core requesting further detail on the process by which decisions are made in relation to halting housing developments due to inadequate provision for wastewater. Now this is an interesting one, folks, so I just suggest maybe you want to flick to page 56 just to read that one. The Minister does outline that she's provided £500 million of public funding this year to Northern Ireland Water. We're not going to rehearse all these arguments. The fourth paragraph, she notes that in line with working with the Department of Communities and DAERA, Northern Ireland Water, EA and the Housing Executive, a number of properties have been unlocked through these additional resources. It's really the paragraph at the end I want to just highlight to members and then seek committee's view on it. The majority of planning decisions for housing developments are made at local government level by local planning authorities. My department does not hold or collate information regarding any planning applications that have been approved but cannot progress due to wastewater provision. Now, this is probably, there's a number of big things that this committee face into. It probably be my view that this is the most sizable one in terms of Northern Ireland PLC. Committee members will be aware, just as being constituency MLAs, about the number of times, certainly is being now flagged up to me, that there aren't enough houses, there's not enough houses being built, that it's, from planning committees, that the planning considerations are being curtailed through connection to sewerage and so forth. And I would like to get to the bottom of some of the numbers around this. My view on it would be that actually local council may or may not come back with these details. I suspect if we wrote out to them, they probably wouldn't, because only one of them, fair play, Derry and Saban, only one of them actually replied to the SUDS consultation. So I'm not sure they're going to come back with this sort of detail, and I'm not being facetious about our planning departments. I think there's issues about numbers there and bodies and how many bodies they can get into them, and I think that's one of the problems. My view would be, but I do want to try and get these numbers, my view would be that we commission RHIs to see what these numbers, see if RHIs can come up with some numbers around this about how many houses or how many housing developments are being held up through wastewater connection. I'm more than happy to hear any other views on that, or if anyone has any other ideas. That's the best I've come up with so far. I'm going to take Harry first.
Chair, sorry, if you don't mind just going back one page.
I'd love to.
Earlier on page 48 in the Ballinhinch bypass is just a comment that officials have been revising previously completed development work to ensure it aligns with current standards and conditions, so that's good news. So the department does plan to submit the outline business case early in 2026, so that's something we just need to keep a wee eye out for. So that's
Absolutely, Harry. So and again, I might not have been certainly more than happy. That's useful. I will take, if anyone has any issues on throughout the entire core, I will take them. So don't worry, feel like I just skipped over it. I'll take them all at the end. Do you have anything in terms of action you want on that, Harry, or is it just a note?
It's just a note.
Okay, okay. Because I don't want to feel like, anyone feels I'm bouncing past items. Anything that anyone wants to raise, we'll take quite happily at the end. I'm just dealing with the stuff that's in front of me. Does anyone have any views on what I've just outlined in terms of course of action around the problems in terms of wastewater, housing developments, and the hold-up regarding that? Are members content? Certainly my proposal that we commission RHIs to find out what those numbers are.
Happy Chair. I also think Construction Employers Federation had contacted us previously with numbers around this into the tens of thousands,
Yep.
both commercial premises that have been held up and also domestic property, so they might well be able to give us an updated version of that as well from their assessment from the industry.
That'd be very useful. Perhaps if committee are happy enough, we can write out to them and ask them for those numbers and what their formula was to get to that number, what the research was based on. That would be useful as well.
Sorry, Chair, do you want the committee to do that, or are you content that Raise does that?
Whichever's the path of least
RHIs.
Yes.
Yeah. We're happy to have RHIs.
Let's raise it.
Any other views, Andrew?
No, certainly not other. Certainly just to reiterate what's all been said. But I think it is just, this is sort of the economic end of the end when it comes to NI wastewater and the issues, but I mean it really is. It's environmental, it's societal, and all these. I think these all really paint a huge picture of the implications, but certainly the economic issues regarding these houses not being built. I mean, the housing, the foundation, Constructors and Employers Federation have really said, where the taps are being turned off here, and I think the economic ramifications of this are quite startling. So I think it needs to be looked at, Chair, and all the evidence needs to be pulled together.
I think they're sizable. I agree, Andrew. I think they're sizable. I think it's problematic in terms of trying to get the social housing that Northern Ireland needs. It's also problematic in terms of the economic drivers that will, we don't want to get to a situation where the Republic's in where just houses cost a fortune, and that's because of reduced supply, and that's where we're heading towards. We don't want to be there, and as certainly my view is, as a committee, we want to be flagging this sort of stuff up. So, Justin.
Is there merit in exploring also through that line of questioning and examination what the timeline is for resolving the barriers that are obviously present in terms of the sewage capacity in this place and the number of houses that are going to be prevented, and also the direction of travel? Is the current direction of travel going to solve any of those issues? Because this three-pronged approach, which doesn't actually solve anything, needs to be properly interrogated. And also there is a paper, many may have seen in the press recently, where there is a huge economic opportunity for the whole eastern economic corridor between Newry and Banbridge for housing, and to serve as a satellite city for Newry and for Dublin, and to create a new hinterland on this island, a new possibility on this island, and that's a barrier to that is water and wastewater infrastructure. So it can't be fully explored without willingness to fully interrogate the opportunities in front of us and to go after them, and not just put our heads in the sand and say we don't have enough money. We've got to be inventive in terms of how we approach this and how we overcome the obvious obstacles in relation to water and wastewater infrastructure and capacity.
I think just in terms of that, I just need committee agreement that we commission raised to take that work forward. Unless anyone has anything else on this.
I'm just checking, was that a proposal?
Was that, yes, sorry, Justin, was that a proposal or?
Okay.
Yeah.
To write to the department to ask about how the department is...
For RHI to give their assessment of the terms of the current direction of travel, is that going to solve the issue? Is that going to allow access to the treatment?
It may not quite give us that. I think they'll be straying perhaps into the pod, but we'll certainly. I think what we certainly will do, Justin, is it'll give us enough information that we can probably make an assessment. I think RHI can speak for themselves. I think they may not want to strike quite into that territory, but we'll see what they come back with. Cathal?
No, Chair, I'd agree with your approach in terms of that, because there's a number of factors, and anybody who attended the utility regulator the other day and had a conversation about the new PC going forward, there's a lot of factors. We need to get some detail ourselves in terms of numbers and figures. So let's get the paper and see where we take it from there. I think John's point about the federation as well is a key element, and we need to just start teasing it out ourselves, because the new PC coming forward over the next period will identify things as well. But for now, I agree with your approach to get as much detail as possible. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Committee are agreed, I think, on that. At page 60, we have a response from the Minister for Infrastructure to Committee Core requesting quarterly updates on the progress of associated actions from the O&M Resilience Review. I just need to seek committee agreement to note this and await the provision of vacancy rates in other NICS departments. Are committee agreed on that?
Agreed.
Okay. At page 63, we have a copy of the Department of Infrastructure Business Plan 2025-26 and Mandate Plan 25-27. I will make one comment around that, and then I will ask for committee agreement to schedule oral evidence in the forward work programme at a suitable date. On page 109, or page it's your committee pack 109. I think it's page 13 of the mandate plan 25-27. Maybe department officials will be thrilled that actually somebody read this, or maybe they won't be. But anyway, it's on long-term outcomes. So on your pack, I think it's 109. And it picks up really where Justin was mentioning about the three-prong approach. So it's really, and I don't know exactly how we go about doing this, but it's to try and find out from the department what impact the three-pronged approach, what quantifiable impact the three-pronged approach will make on wastewater infrastructure and the unlocking of housing regarding that, which I think is the thing, notwithstanding Andrew's views around the environment, they're important as well, okay? But the three-pronged approach is what the department has sort of based their key response around this on. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions around that, but it's how we should just ask the department what impact do they think this approach is going to have, and when will we see an impact on the approach? I'm not sure if anyone has any views on that. I'm quite happy to hear them. John.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to support, first of all, your notion that we seek an evidence session on that. My point wasn't relating to the three-pronged approach, but I'm happy to comment on it. I think your questions would be useful. Further to that, I'd like to know how far into the problem will the three-pronged approach solve?
Yes, yeah.
Is it anticipated that it will be the entire solution? I suspect not. And if that is the case, then if it's X amount of billion, how much of the gap and the hole will it fill? That would be interesting to know. Has an assessment of that taken place? I had another point relating to this and a couple of other matters. I don't know, do you want to three-pronged approach it first of all, and then come back to my...
Well, three-prong the approach, and then I'll come back to you, John. I think next is Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, 100%. I'm actually just thinking about the question and the line of question that we go down, because with the greatest of respect, anyway, I think we send this out, and the department will come back, as they have done, saying that it's not fully finalised, or we're not quite sure yet, or it's a developing policy. And I think, like what Mr. Stewart said there regarding timelines, I think actually an element of questioning should be, how long is this department going to give it? Because what we are, again, as we've explained before, we are looking at environmental issues within Lough Neagh to do with wastewater. We are looking at environmental issues within Belfast Lough with wastewater. We are looking at economic issues with building of houses due to wastewater. We are looking at societal issues regarding and I'm sorry, but the list does go on, and I hate to sound ad nauseum, but that is the crack. And with the greatest respect to the point that you make, Chair, and I certainly don't want to speak for the department, but the answer will come back unless it is tailored correctly. It's still developing, and again, that is just as we can tell, leading to the frustration that we're in now. So whatever we ask, 100% yes, but it needs to be. I think the timeline things are important, Chair. So they are. So yeah.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Andrew. We'll cycle back. That was meant to be a joke about what we're going to look at later on active travel. I apologise for that. Cathal.
Thank you, Chair. No, and listen, I understand where you're going with, Chair, but let's be realistic. The three-pronged approach was ask for more money, the SUDS bill, and developer contributions. And realistically, you mentioned earlier on we're looking detail in terms of 100 hours of constraint. What exactly we're trying to find out? We know the bills come through the Assembly. That's SUDS, so the outworkings of all that, whatever's going to qualify in time to come. It's how we ask what we're exactly asking for, what we're trying to attain, to be honest with you, realistically. I don't mind asking those questions. It's what exactly we're looking as a committee. So we've 13 or 14 months left of the mandate, so let's be realistic. It's not to stop our scrutiny or anything else.
Yep.
It's what we actually ask and what we're putting across here, because let's be realistic. So even if we've got all the money through the next budget to address some of the issues, is it going to happen? The capacity, like I said, I was told the utility regulator, if you look at the PCs, even at that, NIW is only able to spend so much money every year anyway in terms of delivering. So let's be realistic. I don't mind asking the questions and teasing out the three-pronged approach, but let's be serious about how we go. Need a wee bit of thinking what we're asking and what we're looking at. And I agree with the timelines that Andrew said. So listen, I'm happy enough to go at it, but we just need to be sensible of what we're asking. That's all, Chair.
Okay, no, that's useful. Cathal, Justin.
To be very clear, this three-pronged approach, or three-strawed approach, as it might be described, has been presented as the fix-all by the Minister, and it's just not the case. Speak to industry, see what confidence it provides them. Speak to house builders who are waiting with bated breath for access to our infrastructure, our water and wastewater infrastructure, to get houses built, to lessen housing lists. People are on their knees. Our waiting list for housing is growing year on year, and there's no confidence that this three-strawed approach is going to deliver anything. So you ask industry. Okay,
so my thinking on this is, and again, cycling back, because I don't think I've got anyone else there, and I better rip that off and put another name down, is a reasonable summary of what's gone so far. It really is to ask, and I don't think, I agree with Cal, I mean, maybe the department will come back and actually officials will say, actually, we think it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe they'll come back, Andrew, and more likely it'll be something slightly more generic in terms of their responses or answers. We don't own that responsibility. The responsibility of the committee is to ask the questions. The department own the responsibility for delivery. Our job is to ask the questions. That is our job, and that's what we should be doing. And the department owns a responsibility then for actually delivering around that. And it's not an easy issue, and I'm not saying it is by any stretch of the imagination, but I do feel, again, it's just to hold those the department and the officials and the minister to account around it. And I suppose my thinking on this is, as was cited, we have three prongs. We have ask for more money, the SUDS bill, and voluntary contributions from developers. And so what I want is an analysis from the department as to what impact they think that is going to have. And we can bring them in, and it's, to be fair to the department, at least we're letting them know what we're going to be asking, because we don't want to bring officials in and ping them on stuff. What quantifiable impact within this mandate, and perhaps in terms of the long-term outcome that they have cited in their mandate plan, do they think this will make to the issues we face now, whether they be environmental, societal, economic, or construction-based? And actually try and drill down into some of the detail around this. That's probably where I was going with that. I am going to come back to John. I haven't forgotten about him.
Right.
Are members happy enough to write to the department along those lines? Okay, and the department more than know now where we're going with this. So that's fair. That's fair to officials. Our committee agreed on that. And then also agreed on the scheduling. I think we agreed to schedule oral evidence on this, and departmental officials will now know what they're coming to talk about. And I'm going to come back to John.
Thank you, Chair. It's relating to both the business plan and to section 4.6 of each of the roads reports pertaining to winter service. I'm sure the kids and young people and all, they got very excited when the snow and ice arrived. I certainly didn't, because it just filled me with dread. And I want to thank, first of all, Chair, and take the opportunity to thank those who were out delivering the grit and who were on the roads. Great. But the reality in my area, and from colleagues as well, is that the winter provisions simply did not meet the standards expected. There were plenty of notice this time around, and thankfully it was only 3 or 4 days, but quite simply, main routes that are on the gritting route were not gritted. Day after day, and we saw carnage certainly in Carrickfergus and Larne, where I represent, but other members will be able to speak to their patches. Grip boxes were not filled, even though they were being requested on a daily basis, and grip piles were not being left. There also seemed to be a complete disconnect between local councils and DFI in terms of the emergency planning and the supplies of grits being left for people to take. Thankfully, as I say, it was only 4 days, but the reality is if we get a worsening winter or more cold patches, this problem is going to become more exacerbated. And I would just like the committee to write to the Minister for her assessment of the winter provision that took place last week. Was it adequate? Why were major ulterior routes missed on the gridding route, leading to carnage for drivers? And what work is being done with local councils to emergency plan to provide better support for people to be able to grit their roads and their pavements? Because, like I say, 3 or 4 days is not a great deal of cold weather period, but it drastically failed, in my opinion. And I do think we need answers going forward as to what's going to be done should more and more snow and ice appear.
Okay. Justin?
Just following on from John's important points, is there a schedule of roads that should be gritted or where grit piles should be replenished for farmers? I'm getting calls from multiple farmers on the freezes, on the snowy days where the milk truck can't get in, and that's just a no-go for the farming community. They need the milk truck to get in, and when they go to seek to grit the roads themselves from piles which haven't been replenished, is there a schedule of gritting for farmers' roads where milk trucks must get access?
Okay, no, that's a very reasonable question. Anyone else on this item? Okay. Our committee agreed to write to the department along the lines that the Deputy Chair and Justin have outlined. I'm happy enough? Yep. Okay.
Just to clarify what those things are, Chair. If that's
Go ahead, Michael.
Just, I wouldn't want to write the wrong thing. Just the Minister's assessment of the adequacy of the actions for clearing roads, for gritting roads over the last period. Any reasons why major routes were not gritted during that period. Details of liaison with local councils in terms of the provision of grit and gritting of roads, and whether there's a schedule of gritting roads for farmers to access their business.
And replenishing grit piles, so it mightn't necessarily be a question of
replenishment of grit.
Chair, and Michael, if I may as well, there's some discussion that there may well have been a staffing issue relating to this as well, potentially. it'd be worthwhile getting the Minister's assessment of that in terms of being prepared for any future winter periods. Thank you.
Agreed. At page 117, we have correspondence from the Department of Infrastructure on the temporary appointment of Mr. Declan McGeown as the Department's Permanent Secretary until the completion of the Permanent Secretary recruitment campaign, which is ongoing, I believe. I just want committee agreement to express and record the committee's thanks to the outgoing Permanent Secretary, Dennis McMahon, who I did work with a little in past jobs. And Dennis, if you're watching, which I know you're not, or you definitely shouldn't be, I want to wish you all the very best on your retirement. Our committee agreed. Can we write a letter?
I'm just wondering who would write it to, because he's retired.
Oh, he's gone.
He's
yeah,
gone.
he's
Yes.
gone.
It's not. He's going to go. He's actually gone.
He's really gone. Well, you just have to, you know, Dennis. Thank you. I think that's the best we can do. Carl.
Sure, I'm sure there's a following on address.
Do you think so? There's a forwarding address there. We will see if we can, leaving aside all the GDPR implications of such, we'll see if we can.
I'm getting an indication that if we write to the department, to the current, then they will forward it on to him.
Yeah, I would say that's probably doable. So if
Just in case you're not listening,
why would he not be? I mean, he's probably he's probably pining by this stage. I would imagine.
On a cruise.
Pining somewhere in Barbados.
Yeah, Barbados. Yeah.
Our members agreed then on that basis that I will write on behalf of the committee to express our thanks for his service.
Great.
Okay. At 3:02, we have a response from the Minister for Justice to committee correspondence on the recording of images at road traffic accidents. Now, this did make it to the floor of the Assembly, and there was some discussion around this. For the members who are interested, it is on page 302. It's a letter from the Justice Minister back to the committee, and she's copied in the chair of the Justice Committee. And essentially, the Minister's letter says, and to be fair to her, I'll just read it out, the introduction of legislation to prohibit the recording and sharing of images from road traffic accidents would cut across the responsibilities of many departments and organisations, including my own. Primary responsibility for road safety policy lies with the Department for Infrastructure. Okay, so I'm not entirely clear, but it seems to be the Justice Minister saying if we want to make an offence of recording images at RTAs, and obviously this was talked about, it's an incredibly sensitive issue that someone spoke on the floor of the Assembly. So the Justice Minister seems to be saying that is the Department for Infrastructure's responsibility in terms of this specific offence, recording images at RTAs. My understanding and memory from the debate was that the Justice Minister said, you know, there could be an offence that covers a wider range of issues, and as such, that would bring in not only other departments but possibly the United Kingdom government. However, in terms of the committee varies, I think there was clearly, I got a sense from my perspective that we were really talking about the recording of images at road traffic accidents. It's up to other committees, it's up to individual members, it's up to executive departments whether they wish to create an offence of recording images if somebody else, fell victim to something, but it wasn't an RTA. But for committee purposes, this is what we have in front of us. Now, I'll take any views on this that the committee have. My personal view on this is we need a level of clarity between justice and infrastructure as to, on this specific offence, who is responsible and who has the authorities to take forward legislation in this one area. Okay, and as such, I suppose the obvious thing to do would be to copy the letter that the Justice Minister sent to me to the Department for Infrastructure and the Minister and say, is this your understanding? And see what the Minister says. That's the best I've come up with, but I'm certainly open to taking any other views on it.
I think that's a reasonable enough approach to take. Certainly Cathal will know from being on the policing board that the police will come in and discuss with us things that they're looking in terms of offences, in terms of road safety and things like that. So I think it would be reasonable enough to forward it across to the Infrastructure Minister to see if she could add that to the suite of things that the police are certainly looking from DFI.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, what we will do is forward on the letter to me from the Justice Minister and ask the Infrastructure Minister for clarity around whether or not she concurs with the Justice Minister that, certainly my reading of it, that the responsibility for taking forward legislation that would make the recording of images at road traffic accidents an offence, that lies within the boundaries of the Department for Infrastructure. People are content? Okay. We have... It's okay. Page 305, we have response from the Department for the Economy to Committee Core to Trading Standards in relation to parking enforcement. I need committee agreement to note and consider this whenever we have received legal advice around that. That legal advice is, we're probably going to get, pardon me, late January. Are people content to note and then take this up whenever we get the legal advice?
Right,
yep. At page 311, we have a copy of a pivotal paper, Northern Ireland's multi-year budget challenges and opportunities. It's certainly very interesting in terms of that. There's been some discussion around this, and obviously it's very thematic in terms of the budgetary discussions that are going on at the moment. Perhaps we could just note this and include it in the papers for the next budget evidence session from departmental officials, if members are agreed.
Agreed.
At page 346, we have a request from the Northern Ireland Assembly engagement team for committee involvement in the Balmoral show, and that is in May 2026. My understanding is that last year the committee agreed not to attend as a committee, since individual members would be attending in their individual capacity. I will be at the Balmoral show. Not sure whether I have my infrastructure hat on or not. But I will be there. I would suggest it's probably, unless the committee have a very strong view on this, it's probably for individual members to decide whether they want to go to Balmoral or not. Anyone got any views on that? Should the committee go as a committee, or is it fair enough that individual members go as required?
I think the same as last year. I think would work well and suffice. I think we had our committee meeting as normal on Wednesday morning. Is that correct, Michael? There was some discussion last year, and then people can go wherever they want after that.
Okay.
Would be my view anyway.
Any other views?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. So look, it'll be up to members to decide what they wish to do. I think we have got agreement on that. I will now open it up to members in terms of any other things they want to raise out of the correspondence, the fairly significant correspondence that we've received. Has anyone got anything else they want to flag up? Nope. Okay. Our members agreed to note the remaining correspondence?
Great.
Okay. So that takes us to item 7, which is the Northern Ireland Audit Office Active Travel Report, and we have departmental officials in to give oral evidence around this. At page 363, we have the clerk's memo. At page 367, we have the Department for Infrastructure Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel cover letter. At page 368, we have the Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel in Northern Ireland. At page 416, we have the Department for Infrastructure Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel response to recommendations. I would like to welcome Colin, Peter and Sharon, who are all from DFI and are going to give us some evidence this morning. I would like to ask for committee agreement that this session be recorded by Hansard. Our committee agreed. And I would then like to invite the departmental officials to make an opening statement of up to 10 minutes when you get settled. You probably thought you were going to be in about 45 minutes ago, I'd imagine. So please just get settled, and then I will hear your opening statement. Colin, we're in your hands.
Thank you, Chair and members. Thanks very much for the opportunity to give you an update on the NAAO report. We very much welcome the publication of the report. And since September 2023, our team have been working very closely with the Northern Ireland Audit Office in their work into active travel. We've accepted all of the recommendations and formally notified NIAO in November 2025. We also shared our detailed response with the committee last month to inform today's discussion. The report rightly highlights that the transformative impact of the Climate Change Act of 2022, which introduced the statutory requirement for at least 10% of the transport budget to be spent on active travel. And we have taken as a department significant steps which are recognised by the NIAO to strengthen the delivery in this area. The last couple of times we were up in front of the committee given an update, I highlighted the importance of the ramping up and the enabling activities to ensure that we have the proper foundation in place to allow us to deliver a sustainable, high quality active travel at pace moving forward. These included restructuring, improved resourcing, changes to how we procured supply chains, development of the active travel delivery plan, which we're going to talk about in the next session, which included a full update of our design guidance and additional technical support from the Active Travel Support Office. I'm very pleased to say that all of this work is pretty much complete, what I'd like to do, and I think it would be very useful for the committee to get a bit of an update on the various strands of active travel work that we do, and sort of split that into 4 strands. So it starts off with behavioural change, Belfast Cycle Network, delivery throughout the rest of the province, the other divisions, and greenways, and these are all supported by the Active Travel Support Office and the governance framework. So the first, and I think the most important one, is behavioural change. We want to focus getting people to change their habits, to do more walking, wheeling and cycling, and that starts off at the early ages of primary school children, and we have got good programmes in place for that. We have around 4,000 pupils who have received the cycling proficiency training last year. 20 new schools have joined the Practical Child Pedestrian Safety Training Programme, up from 14 previously. The Active Schools Travel Programme, delivered by Walk Wheel Cycle Trust, formerly Sustrans, where 60 new schools participated in the scheme in 2025. This scheme is co-sponsored by DFI and PHA, and the contract has been extended to August 2027, just very recently. Very encouragingly, surveys carried out as part of the programme tell us that the percentage of pupils travelling actively to school has increased from 35% to 45%, with car and taxi use falling from 58% to 49%. Moving on to the Belfast Cycle Network, we have made a lot of progress in this area over the past couple of years. Recently completed on site, we have the Stranmillis embankment completed in the last summer, and schemes that are currently on the ground include Lagmore Avenue, West Belfast, Greenway Phase 1 and Island Street. We have another number of schemes which are moving closely to the TRO, the Traffic Regulation Order stage, and that's Montgomery Road, Sydenham, Greenway Phase 1, Durham Street and College Street North, and a further 8 schemes advancing through the design process. Into moving outside Belfast and into the other divisions, The delivery teams also continue to increase their capacity to deliver, and notable recent achievements include the opening very recently of the Moylan pedestrian and cycle bridge, along with significant upgrades to the connecting Black Pass in Craigavon, and soon to be completed Ballykelly to Grey Steel cycles active travel scheme, due to be opened and completed in the next couple of weeks. Moving on briefly then to greenways. Again, in the past year we've made significant positive progress in greenways, both in terms of delivery on the ground and in strengthening long-term partnership with both councils and cross-border bodies. The Carlingford Lock Greenway, which is 11.4 kilometres, was opened in September 25. Bangor Newton Ards Greenway, which is 5.4 kilometre route, is very near to completion. We're also supporting councils in taking forward new schemes, some very ambitious schemes, including the Portrush to Giants Causeway scheme, Comber to Newton Ards, and Sligo to Enniskillen. We also have grant funding rounds, and the most recent one on September 25, we had offers totalling £1 million, which were issued to 3 councils to support 7 approved projects under that. Previously, in the previous year, we had grant funding of £1.9 million across 7 active travel schemes. The most notable or most visible probably is the Belfast, the e-bikes addition to the Belfast bikes. We talked before about the importance of having an active travel support office, which is something that we've copied really from colleagues in the south, which is key to the successful delivery of the projects that they had. It's basically a small team of full-time external consultants in assisting our teams right across the board to help them deliver at pace. They've significantly provided additional capacity, enabling faster scheme assessment and improved technical assurance. To date, 97 routes have been appraised, with around 20 schemes ready for design to commence across the active travel delivery plan and Belfast cycle network areas. By combining the ATSO expertise and internal talent, we have significantly increased delivery capacity and are now well positioned to deliver at pace. So just a quick summary on the overall investment that to date or in recent times. So since the Act was introduced up to the end of 24-25, so last financial year, around 150 million has been spent overall on active travel. Of that, 27 million of the capital investment is in new active travel infrastructure, which is approximately 37 kilometres of additional active travel infrastructure to the network. In 25-26, this financial year, we're delivering 17 new schemes, which adds an additional 15 kilometres to the network. Spend on active travel infrastructure has grown by 50% over the recent years, rising from 12 million in 2022-23 to nearly 18 this financial year. Referring back to the ramping up work that we did, this has enabled us to put in place a sustainable pipeline of high quality schemes. For example, right now we have in the region of 140 schemes in the system, should that be from proof of concept to being on the ground at this point in time being constructed. Members may be aware that yesterday Minister Kimmins gave an update on the 6 signature schemes, active travel signature projects, which work has commenced on. This is quite important for us. We talked about how we have increased capacity for design, and that's one of the constraints that we had some years ago, was not having enough capacity for design. We have our own internal designers, design teams. They're supported by partner consultants, but by putting these major schemes out, these signature schemes, which are much bigger schemes, it allows us to use the major works framework and bring in additional different consultancy support to deliver them too. And that's really important as we move forward, that we have this conveyor belt of schemes, so that if there's a problem with one, we've got another scheme coming behind it. Just briefly, before we close and invite questions, the NIAO report is very much about governance, and as I said, we've accepted all of the recommendations there. Over the recent years, we've identified delivery blockages and put in place measures to address them. Scaling up presents new risks as well as opportunities, and we welcome the Northern Ireland Audit Office assessment as a chance to strengthen governance, improve prioritisation and enhance transparency as we grow the programme. And just in closing, we've moved from foundation building to real delivery, increased investment, strengthened capacity and establish a robust pipeline that positions us to meet our statutory commitments. Thank you very much for listening, and very much welcome your questions.
That's great. Thank you very much, Colin, Peter and Sharon, for coming along here today. And I'll kick off and then I'll hand over to the Deputy Chair. Unfortunately, the committee have heard me talk a lot this morning, probably for the guts of an hour. So I have a few questions for you. I feel confident that other committee members will have a range of questions. We just start off in terms of the NIO report. I'm going to give you a quote here. It says that it identified a lack of transparency and stakeholder confidence in terms of active travel and engagement. Would you accept that criticism? You accepted the report. Would you accept that criticism?
Yeah. So I think what we need to do is to turn the clock back a few years. So I think there's been a step change in engagement with interested parties, two of which we have in the audience with us today. We have a much better relationship with other interested parties, and I think I can go far enough to say that there's agreement with a lot more of what we do today than what there was a number of years ago. There's still work to be done, as one of the recommendations is there within the report, and something in which we had planned to do anyway is to set up a number of governance forums, and one is a stakeholder forum where we will have all of the interested parties at the table to hear exactly what's going on, be completely transparent with it, and to hear their view on how we should move forward with delivery of active travel.
I'll stay on that for a second, Colin, if I could, because you mentioned the stakeholder forum on the way through as a methodology for establishing trust, and obviously part of your work now in light of the NIO report is about doing that. Has that met, that stakeholder, the active travel stakeholder forum, has that met yet? Has it been established? When will it meet? I don't know the answer to any of those. I should, in order to effectively ping an official, but I don't. So it's a nice open question for you.
I'll give you the short answer is no, not yet, but the time frame is fairly...
Yeah, it's one of the recommendations that we accepted, and the implementation time for that is May 2026. So over the coming months, we expect...
It's not May 2027, Peter.
No, we're the recommendations within the report, and with respect to the three governance boards, I think all three of them we have accepted and have put in place an implementation time of May 2026. So over the coming months, we expect to introduce all those boards.
Okay, that's fine. How often have you got indications as to how often that active travel stakeholder forum will meet?
Well, one of the key things within the recommendation around the stakeholder forum is that there be an element of co-design in it. So the first job, whenever we invite people to come to be members of the forum, we're going to undertake an exercise to agree at terms of reference, and that'll be part of that to make sure that it's a proper, meaningful co-design process.
Okay, I understand that. That's fine. Okay. So the next question for me, just within again, quoting from the NIO report, it says the department's track record in the delivery of its active travel objectives is poor and has had little impact on active travel levels. Can I ask you in the first instance, What's your assessment of the underlying reasons for the limited increases in active travel so far?
So I'll kick off, and Peter and Sharon can add in anything. So I think there's a number of strands, and some of the work streams that I mentioned there earlier on are key to that. So behavioural change, I need to say no more about that. There, it's absolutely key. Investment in infrastructure is key. So we've historically been underinvesting. We took the team a couple of years ago to the Netherlands to see how it is done there, and picked up a lot of strong learning points from them. But the reality is they've had generational change, and one of the key things that I explain again and again is that we are at a very early stage in this journey, and you'll pick up more from Peter's presentation on the active travel delivery plan, because that's key to how we move forward. But we can focus on 20 schemes that we're delivering on the ground now, and it might be 1 kilometre or 5 kilometres linking a school to a community, or linking a community to a town centre, or whatever that happens to be. But those individual linkages are only going to support people who live at one end of that link to go to the other end of the link. You need a coherent network in place before you'll see big shifts and changes, and that's going to take decades to get to that point. So again, if you might want to come back to that when you look at the presentation of the active travel delivery plan, because that's what that looks like. That looks like a 10-year and 20-year vision as to where we want to get to. Before that plan, divisional teams were prioritising things on the basis of requests which were coming in, as opposed to I'm not saying they weren't doing this, but the focus wasn't on looking at the bigger picture and long term. So you really need to have a coherent network there to give people real good choices to make. And as I say, we'll incrementally work our way there, but it will not be till later on in that process that you actually get big big shifts of people moving to that. Particularly for cycling. In that case, we've got a good network for walking.
You mentioned, just finally from me, and then I'll hand over to John. You mentioned investment on the way through there. Do you mean when you use that word investment, Colin? Do you mean investment in active travel or investment in department? Right at the start of your answer.
Yeah. So I think it's both, because ultimately we're living in very difficult times with regards to budgets. DFI has 90 to 95% of the activities that is carried out is still driven by legislation. So the Climate Change Act is one more piece of legislation which says that you must do this here. So if we continue on in the budgetary positions that we have, and there isn't enough money to do everything, there's still going to be very difficult decisions for ministers to make as to how that money is prioritised between all of the activities that the department has to carry out.
I understand that. I mean, I did come across figures recently, and you may or may not be aware of this, that in the last 10 years, DFI's budget has risen the highest, second only to health. It's risen more than education, 60%. I think DFI's budget's gone up in the last 10 years. The only budget that's gone up more than that is actually the health, and I was surprised to see it exceeds education. So I know the minister's lines often are about there's not enough money. I think Sam McBride wrote an article about that during the Christmas period, and why there's not enough money. But it's just to highlight that figure that actually, DFI in terms of the last 10 years has done fairly well in terms of departmental budgets within the Northern Executive. I will park that section there, and I'll hand over to John.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks folks for coming along with your answers so far, and I'll try and not stray into the second evidence stage, but just to follow on from the Chair's point regarding the Audit Office's report on the poor or little impact on active travel, and Colin, I take the point that you make. I suppose my question initially is, is it a capital scheme first and foremost, and if we build it, they will come? Or what is the department doing to actively encourage more people to get into it? You talk, Colin, about cycling proficiency. To me, it strikes me that we've gone backwards. I remember, if I drive around the streets now, I don't see anywhere near as many young people and children on their bicycles and on their scooters as they did when I was growing up. And it felt like 25, 30 years ago that cycling proficiency and encouragement to cycle was a foregone conclusion, and now it's a scheme that we're hoping to promote. You know, when do we get to a stage when we're getting every young person on a bicycle and we're getting them ready to go alongside the capital works that are taking place to get them onto those greenways and cycleways?
I think you hit upon a really important point about societal change. I was when I was a youngster, that was the same thing.
Yeah.
Now there are other things which are seen as being more attractive to getting out into the fresh air and on a bike or whatever to do that. But what we're doing, and the focus has to be on the behavioural change aspect of that there, and not just getting into the schools and running the programmes that we do and increasing those programmes, which are really important. What we're looking at and developing in the background is a number of pilot projects which will look at how you actually provide that connection to the schools. So if you go in and you try and encourage children to cycle or walk to school, but they don't have the high quality infrastructure to actually get them from where they live to the school, then it's sort of from a cycling perspective, in most cases there will be reasonable walking facilities there. That's something that we're looking to do to encourage. But again, I go back to the Netherlands example. It didn't happen overnight there. I think the Climate Change Act is a key in allowing the proper investment over a long term to allow generational change here.
Okay. The Audit Office report highlighted that we don't know exactly what constitutes road spend or maintenance, or we don't know exactly what constitutes active travel's percentage spend and what that can be spent on. The last time we met, we discussed what constitutes active travel, and I made the point that roads maintenance could well come under it if we're not going to have cycle lanes everywhere, that potholes could well be included. Streetlights, I believe, are in some areas and aren't in others. Is there an ongoing discussion about that, and what does constitute active travel spend for that overlap between cycle lanes and roads, for example, and pavements?
I'll start in this one and let Peter come in and cover it. I think we have provided some information to the committee on it, and it's the key here is that it's not just about building new infrastructure. We have to be sustainable, and we have to look at how do we maintain everything that we build. But not only that, if we don't maintain our existing walking and cycling infrastructure, it's not going to be usable or attractive, and it's key that we invest in that as well. Peter, do you want to?
Yeah, fundamentally there's a couple of differences between how the road network, and including the active travel network, footways and cycleways, are managed. In most of the other jurisdictions in the UK, local authorities have a significant role, whereas in Northern Ireland the Department for Infrastructure is the sole roads authority, and therefore our budgets include not only capital investment but also quite large maintenance budgets, to maintain that existing network. So that's one thing to bear in mind whenever you're considering that it's not like for like with other jurisdictions. So we had to interpret the law as it was enacted in the Climate Change Act to our arrangements, and we carried out that exercise, and the summary of what the department considers to constitute spend for the benefit of pedestrians and cyclists is published on the department's website now, to a certain level of detail. On the dedicated active travel investment, which is what Chair was speaking about earlier, we're seeing an increase in investment, and there'll need to be further increases over the years as we head towards the Climate Change Act target. Changes to investment in maintenance of the existing facilities and things like that are wider discussions to be had, and there's obviously, you've got your competing demands. So if you're spending more money maintaining footways, are you spending less money fixing potholes, or are you spending less money running public transport services, because all those things make up the transport budget.
Okay, that's useful to know. In terms of overlap between other departments, obviously there's a health benefit to this, and there's education, and that fits into the schools through cycling proficiency, and there's local councils and their roles. And I'm just wondering what the department's doing to liaise with other departments to ensure that everyone's doing as much as they possibly can to promote active travel and to reap the benefits from it. Is that working group underway, and who's involved in that?
So historically, it's been primarily PHA that we've been working with, and it's the health benefits. It's out there. Everybody knows that there are massive health benefits. We can get people out using it. What we're wanting to do with the stakeholder forum moving forward is that we get as many departments involved in that as possible as well. Like, education is absolutely key to it. There's an argument that should be part of the curriculum, and that we shouldn't be actually doing what we're doing through the programs that we have. But whenever we launched the active travel delivery plan, I've lost track of time now. Was it early last year? Anyway.
The consultation on the active travel delivery plan launched in June last year.
So we had a launch event, and we had every department represented there, and every council represented there, and it showed the interest that we actually have there. And we actually had two ministers, the health and the infrastructure ministers, both there as well. So there's definitely interest there, and it's I think that forum will hopefully help to expand the potential programs that we could come up with together.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fair to say that there are already groups in place for interdepartmental working. So, for example, I would sit on an interdepartmental working group on outdoor tourism. It's led by Department for the Economy and Tourism NI, but obviously from the Greenways perspective, we would have an input into that. And Sharon could talk on, I can never remember the full name of it, the ADOG.
ADOG, yeah, I sit on an all departmental officials group for making lives better, and that's chaired by the CMO in the Department of Health, and that includes all the government departments as well.
Okay.
It would be remiss, sorry, if I didn't mention the Department of Communities.
Yes.
We have a joint programme with them, which should have been the first thing I mentioned there. So there is a lot of work going on there as well. But if we pull them all together and have them all feeding into the one programme, it would be great.
Right. Jeremy, very quick, my last point.
Go ahead, John.
Just time. Just to go back to the cycling proficiency, you talked about numbers to date. I'm just keen to get a flavour for how that scheme is going to be grown over the coming years and where you hope to get to. Is it a total universal rollout, which would be great, or when do you expect to get to that point?
I can speak to cycling proficiency. So every school in Northern Ireland, or every primary school in Northern Ireland, is invited on an annual basis to participate in the cycling proficiency scheme. How many of those schools decide to take that up is a matter for them. Okay. We understand that the way cycling proficiency works, it's extremely good value for money, in that it's led by the teachers, and the small number of staff within our team facilitate that and provide the information. They train the trainers, and that's what allows. I essentially have 3 members of staff who do that and the pedestrian child safety training, and they could never train 4,000 young people it's generally running the last term of school as an after school activity or as part of PE. My 3 members of staff could never train 4,000 children in that. Now, pre-COVID, our numbers were up around, I think it was around 6,000. And there was a drop-off post-COVID, and there was also other issues around teachers and things like that. So it's up to the schools to decide whether they're able to take part in that. That's only one of our programmes. There is the Active School Travel Programme that we fund and Sustran deliver in a smaller number of schools. And then there's also our pedestrian child safety training, that small group within my team who lead on that behavioural change. And I don't know if any of you have seen the recent videos that we've had on social media around pedestrian child safety training and around junior road safety officers, which is a fantastic initiative, where you essentially have the P7 pupils giving road safety advice and thing to the younger pupils. And so all these things are all impactful in dealing with those school age people. But we need to think about behavioural change in the wider aspect as well, and creating behavioural change for adults and things like that too are all important. And there are a number of things that can be done. I'm not sure if I mentioned in committee before, but for example, TransLink in the last couple of years have changed their travel app to have a bike it option on it, so you can choose a public transport journey that includes cycling. And very often, if you go into that, depending on where you live, that could be the most efficient way for you to get from A to B, is a combination of cycling and use of public transport.
Yeah, no, really useful. I mean, the point you make is valid. I mean, quite often too, it's the young people leading the adults to the change. We saw it with recycling as well. You sow the seeds in school, and the kids are telling the parents off, and that could be similar when it comes to active travel. Sow the seeds and poke the parents when they get home. And I think the more that we can invest in that, and the more we can do, will be very useful. I have other questions, but I'll save them for session B. I think
session 2. That's fine. Thank you, John. Before I bring in the next person, which is going to be Stephen, I think Sharon, A-Dog was a rapper in the 90s, so well done with that. Well done with that acronym for government.
Use a bike to go to work.
And government department. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, folks. Good to see you again. Just going back to the Audit Office report, where it talked about the limited impact on active travel levels to date, really. I suppose on a high level, can you say, or what's your thoughts on, has this delivered value for money to date?
So every individual project that's delivered has to go through a process and prove that it's value for money.
Yeah.
So some form of business case process to demonstrate value for money. The difficulty with this is what I said earlier on. You can provide one linkage, and it's going to get a certain number of people who will be interested in using that linkage.
Yeah.
Until such times as you have a coherent, connected network, where you've got really good choices, where you can go to school, you can go to the town centres, you can connect to a greenway to go to another town. It's not until you have that type of network that you have in the likes of the Netherlands that you're going to get mass movement to it. So in the long term, yes, if we continue to invest, it's going to provide massive value for money, massive modal change. So the short answer is yes, we can say that it offers value for money. What we can say again, and it'll come through in Peter's presentation in the Active Travel Delivery Plan, because we have a much better planned a much better plan as to how we're going to get to that coherent network, it's going to deliver much better value than that would be by just doing it in a piecemeal approach.
Yeah. So I'd like to add, Stephen, if you think about, if we take it up a level and think about, is investment in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, does that provide good value for money compared to other transport infrastructure? Approximately a quarter of all journeys in Northern Ireland are active travel journeys. They're either walks or cycles. At the minute, we're spending something in the region of 5 to 6% of the transport budget in that area, despite the fact that it makes up a quarter of the journeys. Now, the other way you can look at it is the total distance travelled. And the total distance travelled, now this is very rough estimates, because thankfully we don't all have individual trackers that tracks exactly where we're walking.
Not yet.
Not yet. Although Google have a fair idea. But our best information from the travel survey on total distance travelled, the active travel journeys make up somewhere in the region of 5 to 7% of total distance travelled. So whether you take it on a quarter of all journeys, and it's journeys that are made by everyone in society, as opposed to journeys that can only be made by people who can drive a car, I would suggest that relatively modest percentage of expenditure on that infrastructure that enables people to walk, wheel and cycle is good value for money. And the benefits of it, health, environment, societal benefits, and we talked earlier about just the vibrancy of places and people being able and feeling safe and feeling that it's attractive to be out and spend time in streets or in city centres. I think that's got to provide value for money.
I appreciate that, and I suppose that ties in my next question then in terms of the maintenance issue. And I suppose I'm keen to establish, where we are on that. I know it's been talked about in here a number of times, and again, our colleague Keith Buchanan often mentioned it and raised it very eloquently as well. And it goes back to that fundamental issue where you have existing footpaths, and you did touch upon it, Colin, there earlier, where you have existing footpaths in poor condition, maybe hedges overgrown, which is restricting access for all pedestrians, including those with mobility needs and prams and so on. And then back to the potholes and roads where you have cyclists, which you mentioned there, Peter. If a road is safe for a cyclist, it's going to be safe for a larger vehicle, cars and lorries and so on. So I think that I suppose I'm looking for clarity. What is the policy on it? Can it be used within the 10% for issues like that? And John mentioned about street lights as well. So I would appreciate a wee bit of clarity on that, because we have it in all of our areas where footpaths are blocked, unsuitable. Certainly, it's a risk to use some of them. And I think I do believe that the budget should be used to maintain what we have, in conjunction with being, looking to the future as well, and building on what you've talked about in terms of improving the networks and the active travel.
So I think there's definitely a big challenge there, and that comes to the resource versus capital element that we have. And the fact that we've got that bigger issue of maintaining the entire network and prioritisation that we have.
Sorry, just to interrupt, but as it stands, it looks like the department is struggling to maintain what it has. We all know that. Most of us, the roads that we've travelled, even over to be here this morning, you can see that with your own eyes, and it's such a major issue. The deputy chair mentioned about the gritting even over the last one. I know it's a different directorate as such, but it's still the same department, and it's seen as struggling to maintain what it has.
So we have done a number of things to try and circumvent the issue. So one of the things that we're spending capital on from a maintenance perspective is footway resurfacing. So if a footpath is in a certain state that it's that bad, we're actually able to then use capital investment to bring that up to standard. We have given, at the end of a couple of years, we've given additional finance, so you can maybe touch on that.
I was going to say there's an ongoing review of road maintenance within the department. I think it's currently out, and one of the aspects of that is that they're seeking the views of the public on sustainable maintenance, so the importance that's given to the maintenance of footways and cycleways. So that's ongoing. As you mentioned, it's outside of our directorate. But Sharon, I mean, from what we've published on the internet, it's clear about what amount of money has been spent over the last 3 years on capital investment versus maintenance of the existing, isn't it?
Yeah, what we have published is a dedicated active travel spend, so that's the amount that we pay out really from our active travel team, predominantly in the likes of Lag and Pedestrian Bridge. But what we also have included in our 10% is maintenance and reconstruction of existing footways, so that is part of our 10% calculation.
So just to clarify, active travel, I would like to think is very much, looking at the existing as well. It's not purely looking at new projects for yourselves.
So we definitely are to the degree that we've talked about there, and I've mentioned it previously, that we can't just build new and ignore what's there at the moment. I think the reality is that that's a massive challenge for us in the budgetary position that we find ourselves in, and we are doing what we can within that. And I think when we have these governance groups and the stakeholders involved, we can have a much wider discussion. And as Peter says, there's something out for consultation at the moment on that too. But there's, it would be wrong to say that it's not a significant challenge for us at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay, and the final question then, it goes back to, I suppose, institutional knowledge within the department against outsourced knowledge, which comes at a cost as well, which is significantly expensive. So I suppose it's just where we are, that balance, and is there a risk that it is being outsourced rather than being built internally, that knowledge, going forward into the future?
Yeah, I think I've probably answered this question both previous times it was up as well, because it comes up again and again, and I'm sure other colleagues sitting in the same place have given answers to it as well. There's the industry is very difficult to get to fill vacancies that we have, and we've seen that over a significant period of time. We did back in 23 increase the structure for the internal active travel team from a handful of people to somewhere around 50 people in the structure.
59,
and I know that we've only got the high 30s, is it?
35.
35 in post. So for us to, it's impossible for us to get to attract the staff in to do it all internally. So we do, on that basis, we do need to go and get external consultancy support, and that's not new. That we've been doing that for 20, 25 years, and that's been gradually moving.
Local government's the same,
similar
position as well.
And the other point is there are some specialist pieces of work, particularly now, more so now than 10 or 15 years ago. There's a lot of environmental type work where, again, you need to buy that in because it is specialist, and you wouldn't have enough of that work to keep entire teams going in internally and keep them up to speed with the current practice and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, it would be if we could put if we could employ everybody directly through the civil service to deliver this type of work. I think we would deliver fantastic value for money. But this is the model that we're forced to use. Okay. And I don't want to make it sound that it's bad. It's delivering really, really good results, and the private sector bring a lot of fantastic benefit to the process as well.
Okay, thanks folks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the panel for coming in today. Colin, I just want to go back to a figure you said during your opening bit about 150 million has been spent since the Climate Change Act came in 22. But then I think you said 12 to 18 million on active travel spend per year. Where's the gap there within where else the money has gone over those 3 years?
Essentially, Peter, I mean, Colin will answer this properly, but essentially that's when we talk about the £50 million per year, that's the overall spend on active travel, the point that we were just talking about the maintenance of the existing network as well. When we talk about the change from 12 million to approximately 18 million we're sitting at now for capital delivery of active travel schemes and some of our increased investment in behavioural change work and stuff, which is small by comparison to the infrastructure investment increase, but it's that ramping up. It's that side of the thing that is more likely to ramp up more steeply than the other side of the overall spend.
What is that other side of the overall spend?
So the capital
side, but the other that makes up the 50, where is that going?
Sharon has that breakdown there. It's published on the department's website, so you can go in and see that, and we will be updating that. As part of these recommendations is around tracking and monitoring and evaluation, and we will be updating that on an annual basis with respect to what the level of spend is and what the percentage is against the active travel. So it's a difficult enough process. You can do it at the start of the year with opening budgets, and you might know what percentage you're on, and then in in-year monitoring, if the department receives £30 million or £40 million for structural maintenance, that changes those percentages. It changes what the overall transport budget. So on an annual basis, we're committed to publishing the spend across the different functions. But Sharon, maybe you can break it down roughly into the average over the last 3 years.
Okay, what we have, the average over the last 3 years for dedicated active travel project is about 12.7 million. Then we have the wider spend for the benefits of pedestrians and cyclists, that's about 30.5 million. And staff costs associated with the overall delivery, that's about 8 million. So it comes up to roughly about 51 million.
And that 30.5, what does that entail?
So 30.5 includes the minor pedestrian enhancements, that's about 0.6 million. There is maintenance and reconstruction of existing footways, cycleways, traffic signal crossings, and that's about 8.9 million. Contribution towards street lighting costs, about 18.8. Translink spent some money as well on active travel, that's about 1.3. And then we've got, to a small extent, our contribution to greenways through EU Interreg, that's 0.7, and towpath maintenance about 0.1, so that's all our spend.
So that capital And that is that 22? Is that 22, 23?
That is an average.
That was the 3-year average up to the
three-year
end
average,
of 24-25.
Even that 8 million cost on staff, is that just for the active travel unit, is it? Or consultancy fees, or
No,
what is that?
no, that's not. It's all internal staff costs. But what that recognises is, so the active travel team spend 100% of their time on active travel, obviously, but there are a large number of other members of staff within the department who spend a percentage of their time doing things like that. So there will be people in maintenance sections who spend a percentage of their time resurfacing existing footways. There will be people in the traffic control centre who spend a percentage of their time putting in new pedestrian crossings or looking after the existing pedestrian crossings. So it's worked out as a percentage of the staff cost based on a percentage of the work in that area.
I suppose where I get, as chair of the active travel all party group, where I get a lot of the questions from is well over double the amount of money is spent on what wouldn't typically be seen as active travel, encouraging projects. So it's 12.7 is the average for the capital projects that are going to facilitate people being able to cycle and get around easier, as in East Belfast MLA. I'm going to talk up the Cumber Greenway and the Conswater Greenway. 30.5 being spent on footways, minor pedestrian enhancements, streetlights, 18 million. More spent on streetlights than those capital projects. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. I mean, is that encouraging people to get out and cycle more, walk more, get around, ditch the car sustainably? Is that something that's being looked at in terms of, I suppose, value for money, but also that modal shift that I certainly want to see?
Peter, I mentioned earlier that we're talking about a quarter of all journeys. So in order to maintain the status quo, those are the types of figures that we're talking about to maintain the existing network so that it remains in a fit state, so that the people who currently are out walking, wheeling and cycling, that it's safe and attractive for them to do so. I think the Audit Office report recognises that if we're to have a step change in those levels, then that's the increase. That's why we're talking about increasing investment, and I think that's probably within the Climate Change Act. The reason for increasing investment is to try to make positive change, and that's, I mean, we're move into the second session where we'll talk about the active travel delivery plan and how we hope to do that within our urban towns and cities.
Behavioural change is one of the pillars that was discussed there earlier as well, and I'm a big supporter of the Walking, Wheeling, Cycling Trust, formerly known as Sustrans, and I've gone along to the regular, there's a walk that takes place every year for young people in the Braniel to go to school, and I know that happens across Northern Ireland. But to touch on John's point earlier, children used to be seen more on their bikes. The anecdote that I always use is at the Knock Junction during COVID, seeing two parents out with their two children. Never seen that since, at all. This doesn't happen, because despite those children being good on bikes and understand cycling proficiency and being able to get around, they're terrified of the car dominance that we see, the busy junctions that there are. I also, I consider, for example, the Sydenham bypass, and Peter might certainly know this, got a cycle lane recently. I can't actually think of anyone that's ever used it, because they're that terrified with what's going on, and if you get hit by a car as a cyclist, you're not going to win that battle anytime soon. So how are we trying to get people to be cycling post 18 or post primary or whatever it is? Because I think people will do that proficiency course, but then just be terrified afterwards, because we're not doing enough in the immediate term to make it easier for them to get around.
Yep. So really, you're asking, how do we encourage adults? And I think, we'll speak in the next session about improvements to the infrastructure and development of the infrastructure, and how that impacts on more groups to a greater degree than others. But more generally, if you can provide access to people to make the choices, people will make the choice that's most attractive to them. So things like the investment that we put into the Belfast bikes to bring in e-bikes and the refresh of Belfast bikes, and we've done that in partnership with Belfast City Council, who did put their money where their mouth is as well. It was 50% investment our department put into that. And those companies, Beryl, who's the contractor for that, they're very adept at trying to grow their membership, and they know how to encourage people. And what we try to do is to try to facilitate that and to support that, and that growth will happen through those different interventions on both the infrastructure side, on the support for people to get them in to being more physically active, whether that's walking, wheeling or cycling, and on the promotion, so that as many people as possible would be in the position to make those choices. The choices that an individual makes is always going to be their own. What we want to do is to allow people to have the choice to make those choices where they might not have it today.
I'm keen to hear about the trip to the Netherlands, because I follow on social media a Canadian planner, Brett and he always shows a photograph of the Netherlands in 1972, and it's full of cars, whereas now it is exactly as you described. What's the legislation that you mentioned as well earlier? What legislation changes could we as legislators make to make your lives easier, to try to get more people out and about and out of their car? And what did you learn on that trip as well as best practice?
Again, I'll start with the easier one. What did we learn on that trip? And we learned an awful lot. And it's not until you're actually out there. So it's the cycling. Dutch cycling embassy who facilitate this type of visit. So we spoke to designers. We were able to see what their thought processes were. We were actually out on bikes on their network in various different places, so we were actually up close feeling it exactly how it's done. We were able to hear what their challenges were, and it was very interesting. You look from the outside and you think everybody uses bikes over there and they don't use cars, but they still use cars. Even those who are the most adamant or avid cyclists have a car as well, and they're very much about the car is should be seen as the visitor on streets. So they don't actually ban cars from most streets, but there is the culture, the acceptance that bikes, that pedestrians and cyclists and cars can live together, and they have. So we've learned a lot of things from that. And one of the points I made earlier on, it's generational. This doesn't happen. This doesn't. You have to have a good options and choices there for people to do, which goes to the point that you made there earlier on about how do we get people out. I think that's key to, in addition to the points that were made by Peter. Legislative change. There are a few bits and pieces that we could see a few tweaks potentially to the roads order, which would help deliver, for example, greenways moving forward, and challenges that are faced by councils in delivering greenways. I'll probably not go any further than that, but what I would say is I really look forward to having the stakeholder group up and running, because I can see just so many ideas coming out now. We can't take every idea and turn it into reality, but we can filter those and get some really good ideas, which will add to what we as a team and our consultants that are supporting us have already been doing in the thought process to get us to where we are here now, and getting us to the here and now. This was a journey that we accepted in late 2022, following the publication of the Act, that we had to make massive changes to how DFI delivers on active travel, and we have done that, and we've taken it very, very seriously. But we've got a massive journey ahead of us as well, and we have to accept that too.
Thanks very much, Peter. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming in. I suppose just listening, probably going to ask a lot of questions on what you've said. If they stray into the next development, I do apologise, but it's sort of what you've come. And I suppose right at the very start, I suppose I do want to be like a critical friend. Totally full disclosure, didn't cycle in the day, but as someone that cycles regularly and also regularly cycles in Belfast, especially over the Christmas period, I gotta say, with the greatest respect, it's a hostile environment. Okay, it is. It's a nightmare to cycle through. I tried to follow some of the cycleways through the city, and it's I mean, they're illogical. I mean, you follow one-way systems that then just end in traffic lights, and it's difficult, very, very difficult. And I will say as well, it is a hostile environment. It's not only a navigable hostile environment, it is a physical hostile environment. As again, someone that cycles in it, you talk about behavioural change, yes, but as a not so slight 90k fella, I have people lean out the windows and shout at me, only for the virtue of being on a bike, and it is. I mean, and
maybe they recognise that you're, an MLA or something.
Well, I tell you what,
Andrew,
without going to say too much, hope they don't, because I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to incriminate myself now. But
you're privileged in committee, you're okay.
Yes, you're covered, okay.
But it does come back, and again, I'll lean into a point that my colleague Dunn said there about if it is safe for a bike, then it's it'll be useful. That needs to be inversed. I mean, it is so. I mean, just you only have to cycle through and see the white bikes about the town to know that it's not safe. I mean, it's just and I say that I say 90k fella, could have been my wife, could have been whoever, could have been my mother. To have people hurl abuse out of a car by virtue of being a cyclist is ridiculous. So whatever about behavioural change, I think there's a behavioural change with regards to how cyclists are seen first and foremost. But then on a positive note, I know people have said people aren't on bikes, they want to get around my way. It's a bit like Mad Max with kids on bikes and Evel Knievel, people jumping over other people. It's some crack around our way, so it is, you know what I mean?
Post-apocalyptic bike society.
Castlevallon post-apocalyptic.
New movie title.
I need to get down there sometime to see this.
Just I suppose really. When are we going to see the tangible differences in, I suppose tangible differences in cycling through our cities and our regional towns, our local towns? When are we going to see tangible differences? I mean, you mentioned the 10-year, you mentioned Holland or whatever, Amsterdam, 70s, whatever. I can point back, I regularly get sent clippings of previous ministers lauding Greenway infrastructure, and again you've lauded Greenway infrastructure, but yet we don't see it necessarily, and I know the difficulties that go with it, but when are we going to see tangible benefits for cyclists?
Okay, so there's a couple of points there, and again the presentation that Peter's going to give will cover the sort of the wider problems. We've accepted previously that we are catching up with the Belfast Cycle Network, but we have made good strides to that. I think a key change for us or moving forward is going to be the Eastern Transport Plan, which is, I'm not quite sure what stage it's at in consultation at the moment, but it does take a completely different view on how streets or how different modes of transport are allocated to different streets to try and deal with that issue. There's the when are we going to see this change? I've made this point earlier here and on many other occasions. So if you want to go on a safe route, you pick something that we've just built over the last year or two, but it's only going to take you from A to B. Until such times as we have the cycles of investment over many years and have that coherent network where you can jump on a bike or walk and go wherever you want to go to. But as I said, that was generational for the Netherlands, and it's going to be generational for us here, and that will be dictated by the levels of funding that we have moving forward as well. So it's definitely it's not going to be an overnight fix, but there are things that we can do along that way to deal with localized problems as well as the global picture. Peter, is there anything you want to?
No, I wouldn't disagree with your characterisation of some parts of Belfast, and I mean, this stuff isn't rocket science. Colin talked earlier about the car as the guest in certain areas. That's to do with speed limits. It's to do with the numbers of vehicles, so that you can't consider a dual carriageway to be the same as an urban street in the city centre. And what we're looking to do with our delivery plans and our prioritisation is to try to look at the places that can have the most benefit to people early on, and then to build up the network on that basis and to work from there. And as Colin said, the change that we're making now and to go for a delivery against a prioritised plan, hopefully everyone will be able to see over the short, medium and long term what we intend to do over the coming years, no matter where you happen to be living.
Just want to lean into what my colleague said, and you gave some good sort of figures and clarification of figures and stuff like that. But I suppose going back broader, some of the definitions of the of active travel spend have changed, and my colleague rightly pointed out, potholes and lightings and issues like that. I would have a slight concern about some of those changes, because can they be labelled as helping active travellers? Probably yes, but are they encouraging active travellers? Possibly not. I'm not really sure. So I suppose really the point being, how did some of these definitions and change of definitions come about? Is that a whole rewritten thing? Is it going to change? Dare I say it? Whenever we talk about some of the more tangible outcomes and tangible greenways, are those definitions going to be flipped again and sort of actually, we've got the money. Sorry, we can spend the money in, forgive my terminology, being a critical friend here, legitimate active travel ways here. Is that going to happen, or what, how did? So yes, about these definitions, are they going to be flip reversed again? Are they? Yeah.
So, just in short, so the Act in the first instance doesn't define what makes up active travel spend. There's no definition within it. So in the work that we did in first of all, working out what 10% of the transport budget would be. We looked at the budget, what's transport, what's not within DFI, and highlighted all of the activities that fall into that there. And in doing that, we wanted to look at what are not necessarily what would encourage or be nice to haves with regards to other activities that we carry out that contribute to active travel, but what other activities are actually essential that we already do and have been doing for a long time, which are essential contributors to active travel. And one is street lighting. Now, we took 50% of the street lighting budget to be very conservative, that you could take a lot more. If you didn't have street lighting, you will not be able to encourage people to travel, to walk or cycle in the dark. And even to support that, we've moved our policy on street lighting in the last year or two with regards to greenways. It used to be the answer was no, we're not going to light greenways, and we've moved to yes, we have to light them, otherwise they're not going to be used for the most part of the year. The maintaining the existing footways, that's the capital resurfacing element of it, which was 8 million or something like that there. That again is essential, that we maintain what we've currently got, otherwise it won't be attractive to be used. So we're open for discussion on anything that we do, and open to be critiqued on it. But our view is that the activities that we put in there are essential activities to ensure that we encourage use of active travel.
Just the last point, again, you've touched on it already. The reason is the stakeholder forums. Again, just hopefully that progresses as such. But again, like all these things, there are, and I'm fully supportive of the greenways, but certainly at a very local level, there was other interests in railway lines and such like. You know what I mean? So again, just to put that out there as well, and ensure that sometimes lack of communication can lead to miscommunication and what have you. So just if that can be put on your radar, which I think it is by the nod. So we'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Cathal.
I don't think there's very much left.
Come on,
but
you'll come up with something, brother.
It's good to hear about the East Belfast Active Travel Plan, and welcome Peter back to the conversation. Just in relation, obviously, for those who represent rural areas, it's a slightly different issue completely. But it's interesting in terms of John's question about the proficiency thing and working within the schools, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to change mindsets anyway. and hopefully a lot of those young people will go to college and go to university and everything else. The opportunities for them to do that sort of thing, but it's about changing mindsets, and I'm just wondering, is those figures down there? Because I remember on a road safety basis we used to go out to schools and we tried to do those proficiency tests, and where are we in terms of the numbers and encouraging that? My other question then, definitely, and it's about the some of the recommendations arising from the report. The stakeholders issue is a big issue in the forum going forward. I think local authority has a big part to play, and just where do you see that going forward? I know you're setting up and now you're going to have that engagement, but I think going forward that's a key element, and where you see that going. And just in case I'm not in for the next session, I'll throw it in here now. The local development plans is going to have a big part to play. Both now, obviously you may have looked at it, but it's certainly going forward in the new areas of development. You're going to have to look at that. So your views on that. I mean, if you want to answer the LDP question there, you can leave it asked. But that's me.
So in the development of the local development plans, the intention is that they will take cognizance of the active travel delivery plan, and but the active travel delivery plan has to be fluid enough to deal with future development, but it would have acknowledged in its first instance what is development land and what's developed and what isn't developed. So that's that point. On the rural side of things, that is critical to us, because the active travel delivery plan deals with settlements of greater than 5,000 people, which covers a lot of settlements, and I think it's 42 settlements in Northern Ireland, but it doesn't deal with the rural. But we do continually get requests for footway linkages, cycleway requests across the more rural parts of the province, and we prioritise those. We've historically prioritised them, and to be fair, they were getting prioritised, or they were getting scored against non-active travel schemes, which that made it quite difficult for them to score highly. So we do. So the short message is, we do get those requests, we do deal with them, and we are building rural links. We are in the background. We are also looking at an improved prioritisation model using the same criteria as we're using for the key towns that Peter's going to cover in the active travel delivery plan. But it'll give a much fairer basis for rural investment. So it's certainly not forgotten about. And as I say, if requests are coming in, we are dealing with those requests as well. Currently, they're certainly not being ignored.
It's a bigger challenge, and like I said here, if you're not in school, like we're talking about modal shift and everything else, it's part and parcel of a bigger programme. We need to go out to schools. I know when they mention rural areas, it's always with greenways or something. It's nothing else. So there's good opportunities there as well.
Yeah, Cathal, there's opportunities there in rural settlements in particular. So although we have been concentrating over the last 18 months or so on the larger urban settlements, and that I think that deals with approximately 2/3 of the population. There's another lump of the population who live in open countryside, and active travel is it would be really difficult, and would it be the right thing to do for us to prioritise cycle links for someone who lives in open countryside? But there's a large number of people who live in smaller rural settlements, and a network plan in a rural settlement, a small rural settlement, and good active travel in a small rural settlement will look very different to what it does in a large city. So that's where we're going to be turning our attention to next. But in order for us to make that step change from localised divisional prioritisation to having plans in place, we had to start somewhere. So we started in the places where most people are concentrated in living, because that's where active travel has its benefits. It's on those 1 kilometre to 5 kilometre radius journeys.
I just find point here, and I'll use this specifically this point because I know my own area, the likes of outside Armagh City is Milford Village, which is it's now nearly built up and joined together. So the likes of those opportunities may be looked at. I'm only using that as an example. I'm sure across smaller settlements, just on the periphery of large areas. So just fighting the rural corner here when you're here. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you, Cathal. Justin.
Thanks, Chair. Agree 100% with Cal. New Greenway from Milford to Armagh, connecting Milford to Armagh would be wonderful. Increasing active travel is a win-win-win-win. In terms of the £150 million you mentioned, how much of that is from the Taoiseach's Shared Island Fund?
There's none. That's all departmental money. We did get €2 million, and I think it was announced a few weeks ago to use for cross-border Greenway initiatives. But that 150 million is all Northern Ireland block.
Okay, you mentioned the Carlingford Greenway. It's a wonderful scenic route. It's just spectacular. It's world class in terms of the views, vistas of the Mourns and of the Cooley Mountains, Slieve Foy, and Carlingford Loch. It's just a wonderful experience to walk along, to cycle along. It's very, very special and something that everybody involved should be very, very proud of. And on that front, is there any possibility of creating a link greenway between the canal on both sides of Newry City? So that connection piece, where are you at with that? And on that, the towpath along the Newry Canal to Portadown, is that greenway going to be developed and delivered? And to what degree are you coordinating and collaborating with Waterways Ireland to explore the potential joined up approach? Because from the SDLP's perspective, we want to see the reconstruction of the Newry Canal into a navigable canal and connecting that potentially downstream to the Ulster Canal, whereby you can then navigate from Carlingford Loch down to Limerick through Ireland, or to Dublin. It would be just an amazing flat facility to be provided. And are you working hand in glove with Waterways Ireland to explore those possibilities and really explore BHAG's big, hairy, audacious goals, which would be wonderful to create that culture change that you speak of, which is necessary? And on that front, the audit reports recommendation 1 around governance. To what degree is that a concern, where the audit officer are expressing concerns around governance?
Do you want to cover
Yep.
Sorry,
No, you're okay. I'll start off with the Newry Inner City Canal Greenway is the project that we're calling it. So that's one of the department's signature projects, and the Minister announced progress on that yesterday. So that is the project where we have commissioned design engineers to start to look at linking the Carlingford Greenway to the Newry Canal towpath at the northern end. So that scheme is just kicking off. Now, we will work with Waterways Ireland. If Waterways Ireland, I'm not even 100% sure if they're responsible for that bit of canal that runs through the centre of Newry, but if they are, our project team will definitely be getting in touch with them with respect to that section of the Greenway. So we will be developing that scheme. Now, it's fair to say a scheme of that size and of that nature, there's a lot of work has to be done in the background. There's environmental considerations and things like that. So our design team will be getting to work in the background, looking at all those things, identifying the key stakeholders, identifying who owns all the land, and they'll be developing preliminary proposals. One of the key things that we're going to be doing with active travel projects going forward is to try to bring in meaningful engagement with the public and the communities and the key stakeholders at earlier stages. So once we have reasonable preliminary proposals developed, we would intend to go to the public and say, here's our first thoughts, what do you think? And that inevitably brings out additional information that's helpful to us and helps to inform the detailed design. So that's the good news story, hopefully, Justin, for you for the start of that. And then with respect to governance, well, Colin, maybe you can cover the governance arrangements and the change that we're making.
Yeah, so because of the shift from since the Act been put in place and the amount of investment that we're going to have moving forward, we've accepted even before the NIEO came in that we need to have different governance arrangements in place. So we already had governance arrangements in place. We had processes that that staff had to follow to make sure that a scheme was demonstrating value for money to be delivered. But as you move to the scale that we're moving to, we have to put different governance processes in place, and we have known that for quite some time. But and we have been developing those governance. So we're talking about the stakeholder forums that we have, with the forum where we bring the councils together, and then a project board or a programme board for delivering these and putting those in place, and they're very close to being in place. But we focused last year, the last 18 months, on getting the active travel delivery plan delivered, getting schemes on the ground, and the governance processes were coming along with those. So we're at the point where they will be fully in place in the coming
May
months.
2026.
May 2026, and I think the second part of that recommendation is that we review those governance processes. So in working with in the work that NIAO had done, they were aware, and I think it's clear in the report, they were aware of these structures that we were planning on putting in place, and now we're going to put them in place. I have no concerns whatsoever as to what we're doing at the moment. That there are gaping gaps that provide risks to us not delivering value for money in what we're doing already. I see the governance processes as enhancing what we're doing at the moment to hopefully a large degree.
In that same report, there's a damning comment where the department's track record in the delivery of its active travel objectives is poor and has little impact on active travel levels. That's a damning comment for a lot of us to make. Have you any?
Yeah, they rightly so. They look back at the cycle strategy of 2015, which had very, very ambitious targets for active travel take-up. We're, as part of the work that we're doing, and one of the recommendations from the audit office is to look again at those targets. And the point I made earlier, that you will, as you build small additions to the network to attract very localised people to it, you're going to have very, very small increases in usage because of the area of influence that you have. But as you go through years and decades of building a coherent network, you then all of a sudden get a point where there's absolutely fantastic high quality choices that people have to use active travel, and it's at that point that you will actually see the increases. And we're seeing England, Scotland, the Republic, down south, and Wales, all having shifted since certainly 2015 how they measure what the active travel targets should be. And again, it's one of the recommendations within the report that we're grappling with, and certainly will be hopefully helped out by the stakeholders that come on board as part of that discussion as to what our realistic long-term plans, and how we measure the successes or otherwise of those.
And the funding gap from the 85 million that's recommended compared to the 50 million received, is that a big impediment to progress?
So what we have said openly for the last couple of years is that you can't go from whatever we were spending £10 million a year to spend £50 million a year and do it in a sensible fashion overnight. You need to plan for it, and that's part of what we're doing. The active travel delivery plan being updated. We're gonna review the Greenway plan moving forward. We need to have plans in place that are credible, that are consulted upon, that are bought in by everybody, to deliver proper value, focused value for money. So we have aimed, assuming that we get the budget year on year, by 2030 to be hitting the 10% target set out in the Act.
In terms of, you mentioned open country, Peter, open countryside, has there been a scoping exercise conducted in terms of establishing a rights of way network where you're linking country roads together through old rights of way, which, if not pursued, these will fall into disrepair and will eventually just be lost? And there are existing rights of way which are used locally by locals. Can there be established rights of way networks to protect the rights of way?
Yeah, that falls just in more to. I'm not a massive expert on rights of way, but I do know that we mentioned earlier about developing greenways and things like that, where there are a number of different mechanisms where different authorities can assert a right of way or things like that, and it's typically council would be in the lead on rights of way that aren't part of the road network. You know, if we have the road network and we develop the road network, whether that's a greenway, a footpath or whatever, that then becomes part of the adopted road network rather than relying on a right of way.
I'm not talking about
for
rights
that
of way.
infrastructure.
I'm talking about rights of way, old country pathways through fields.
Yeah,
you know,
no, that's
which
what I'm
are
saying.
not
That would be
maintained by-
that would be predominantly, I understand, outside of the remit of Department for Infrastructure. But I do know that it is one of the things that councils look at whenever councils are thinking about developing off-road paths and things like that as part of their greenways or other active travel paths, for want of a better word. It's sort of the difference between our adopted road network routes versus, and that's part of the thing why councils have a greater input into the greenways side of things.
Thanks very much for your evidence, folks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Justin, just before I bring Peter in, I had one just quick clarification thing, and if you could, because I'm now getting a little bit concerned about maintaining this committee as court towards the tail end, because I know we've got another session to come. You mentioned, Colin, on the way through, that the Newry project that Justin referred to was a signature project. I think you used the word signature project. How were these signature projects chosen?
Yeah, grand. So the signature project, 18 months ago or whatever, when we started doing the preliminary work on creating a credible plan that would bring us to the Climate Change Act objective by a reasonable date, we identified that we could build that up through a combination of small, medium and major projects. Major projects by their nature take longer to deliver than smaller projects. So we wanted to get off and going, really, with establishing a small number of geographically spread major projects and get those into the design pipeline early, because we know that they'll take longer to deliver. But each of these projects could be, the combined total of them is going to be something that needs 70 to 80 million. Those projects will develop and come to fruition over a number of years, probably starting in and around 2029. So when we need them in order to make that last step up to meet the Climate Change Act objectives, we expect some of those projects to be shovel ready. So how were they chosen was we wanted a geographical spread, obviously. So within each division, there would have been some plans in place and some routes that were obvious, but they were too big for a small project team to take forward. So for example, in Newry, that's a no-brainer. You've got a greenway coming, you have a canal path, link the two of them up. The Black Paths network is a fantastic network around Craigavon, so it makes perfect sense to connect that to Portadown train station. Sydenham Greenway was part of the Belfast Cycling Network delivery plan. We knew it was going to be in excess of £5 million. It was an obvious one in Eastern Division.
I'll try and wind you down there, Peter. So in essence, these projects made sense, but I assume there was some analysis behind them.
There was a sifting process of them.
Fine.
So each division may have proposed 4 projects each, and then we sifted it down to the 6 most obvious projects.
Absolutely fine. Peter, quickly. Yep.
Yours. Just two very minor points. It was in the streetlights. I think, Colin, you were mentioning streetlights there, and it reminded me. I think it's in our pack actually this week. Is it Philip Robinson is responsible for street lighting in DFI?
Traffic signals, Philip would be
Traffic
more
signals,
responsible for.
Is there somebody else responsible for streetlights in DFI? So is the 18 million that was spent on street lighting using the active travel budget, is that in conjunction with them? Or are they repairing, replacing, enhancing, building new ones? Like how do they differ from that other budget, and what is that other budget?
Yeah, so what I've said in the exercise that we carried out, we looked at what activities we historically carried out and currently carry out, which contribute, I think I used the word earlier on, that are essential to ensure that we attract people to use active travel. So those are activities that historically have happened and have been there to assist active travel. So whenever we talk about this really gets down to pedantics and terminologies about dedicated active travel infrastructure spend. We're talking about new infrastructure. When we talk about the 10% on active travel, that includes the dedicated new infrastructure spend and spend that we spend on other parts of the department which contribute towards essential active travel activities.
We have the red lights that have gone in at the Cumber Greenway. So it's not looking at greenways and lighting of greenways, because I think that's a pilot project. So how do you select what streetlights will be built, enhanced, repaired, whatever it may be, and know that it comes out of your budget and the other budget that whoever else is responsible in DFI for day to day or whatever? How do they establish what they're doing?
Peter, it's not that we have direct responsibility for the department's street lighting budget.
Yes.
What it does is it recognises that the department's street lighting budget performs a valuable service for people who are walking and cycling, and therefore at the centre, all these different budgets that different people are responsible for. It's a massive exercise every year to collate all those individual budget lines in order to come up with the overall spend on active travel. And so it's not that I have a say in how the street lighting team spend their money. Yeah. They spend their money in the best value for money as it is there, but it's recognised that performs a valuable thing for people who are walking and cycling at night.
I'm going to ditch my last question. I'm honestly going to ditch my last question. But can you give me an example?
Short.
Ditch my last. Sorry, I'll ditch the last one. But can you give me an example in Belfast of where that's happened, so I can imagine? It's in my mind's eye. Like where in Belfast?
I suppose to use the Cumber Greenway example,
right.
The active travel capital budget put in the new environmentally friendly streetlights on the Cumber Greenway. The electricity bill for those streetlights forevermore still has to be paid by the department, and it's paid by the people who are responsible for street lighting.
So it's not just repairing and enhancing, etc. It's also facilitating.
It's having it there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Right, Militia. Don't worry, I hadn't forgotten about your brother. We have a virtual Militia here. The floor is yours.
I've got 5-year-old. I think you're all very welcome here. And I'm glad to hear your presentation as well, too, being new to this committee. But just quickly, if I can go into a couple of issues. In terms of the cultural change, and it's disappointing to hear this is going to take so long, because given the example that you had in the Netherlands, and they have a landscape that would lend itself to cycling and so on that we don't have here, that I know that when it comes to the likes of travel to school, whenever I was young, they used to say, because we had to go 20 miles, we say, to Oma to go to a grammar school. At that time, you're nobody unless you go to school in the bus. Well, it seems to be the case nowadays that you're nobody, and this is in the case of primary schools, unless you go to school in a car. So really, how do you sort of influence that cultural shift? And to what extent do you have a responsibility, we'll say, for that? And if I can go on quickly, just the second aspect of my questions as such, it's disappointing again too to hear that priority has been given to those areas where they have a population of 5,000 and more. Is it not a case that it should be rule-proofed in many ways, that where it does take on board then, we'll say, a responsibility to those smaller than 5,000, i.e. like the town I live in myself, where there's probably a population between 3,000 and 4,000, that we're not just left out in the cold until everyone else is accommodated, and then they accommodate, we'll say, the likes of the more rural dwellers.
I'll take the first point, Will, and then you take the
Okay.
second. So on the first point about the cars at schools, we talked briefly about a couple of pilot projects that we're bringing forward to try and first to basically provide good choices for active travel, for walking and cycling from communities to the schools. So if they've got an option there, we can then make the school streets less attractive for cars to be coming and parking there. There's an example, Peter, maybe give a bit of detail on it. There's an example of a recent scheme that we've completed in Belfast, which does some of that, not all of that, but some of that there, which has been, from our perspective, very successful. So, that is work in progress there. So, if you want to touch upon St. Edith.
We recognise that. So, what we're talking about here are relatively small, relatively inexpensive interventions that, if the problem is pavement parking, well, you can put bollards in to stop people parking on pavements. If the problem is that children can't safely cross the road, there's things that you can do to either reduce the speed limit or to put in a zebra crossing or something like that. Elisa, look, I would like to try to reassure you, what we want to do is to have a fair allocation geographically across the north, but how we split that allocation and then how the divisional teams determine what proportion of their effort and time goes into a rural scheme and an urban scheme and things like that. It's fair to say that's going to be an iterative process over the years. What I'm trying to say today, and maybe I didn't articulate it properly, is that we understand that we need to develop a different way of looking at a small village. It's not the same as a large city. So we have to work out, how do we improve active travel for people who live in small villages? And that will look different to cycling around a large city.
Sorry, well, just on that point, whenever I use the example of a smaller, we'll say, town as such, some of our larger towns in close proximity to our cities actually suffer from the same consequences as a result, we'll say, of your policy that tends to accommodate the greater number of people.
Yep. So, Melissa, look, our policy, it's not that we're not thinking about everybody's equal, everybody's a taxpayer. What we want to do is we want to develop a means of a fair allocation on a geographical basis. Now, it's easy for us. We have 4 divisions, so that's our first split. Then we start looking at, is there a fair allocation across the council areas within that division? And then you're down into individual communities, talking to individual local councils about where the priorities for investment should be within that council area. But I can give you an example of a scheme between Crumlin and Glenavy. Glenavy's a village that's about 2 miles from Crumlin, so that's an easily cyclable example of, and we're developing a scheme at the minute to try to improve the active travel linkage from that village to the larger town that's nearby.
Thank you very much for those questions, Melissa and Peter, for your response. Right, okay, so look, I'm conscious we've been going for nearly the guts of 3 hours now, or we certainly have. Even though we're in danger of, I don't think we will, but certainly I know that other colleagues have to go to PAC amongst other things at 2 and they want to have lunch first. We are going to take a break because otherwise people will just keep leaving. So we're going to take 5 minutes here and then we're going to come back just for the consultation, and again, just before we even get into that, I'd really encourage members, concise questions, maybe try and limit this down because they don't want to lose it at the other end. And again, I'd say to the officials, just really as concise answers as you can. We're going to take 5 minutes here and then we'll be back and we'll get into that, okay?
Committee Room 29, Sound. 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 Committee Room 29, Sound.
Okay, welcome back to the Infrastructure Committee. Just to update anyone watching online, just because the committee has extended quite an amount today for a whole range of reasons, not least there's been a lot of evidence and a lot of things to discuss. We want to ensure that we get some of the key elements finished, and so we're going to just, with committee agreement, move on to item number 10, which is the Water Sustainable Drainage and Flood Management Bill. And at page 520 we have the clerk's memo. At page 527 we have the Committee for Education and the EA response. And I just need to seek agreement from committee to receive oral evidence from the organisations as proposed in that clerk brief, and they are, notwithstanding others, Institution of Civil Engineers, the Construction Industry Research and Information Association, and some environmental organisations, and you can see those in your committee pack. Further, I also need to seek committee agreement that committee staff scope potential options for an external visit in February 2026, subject to stakeholder availability. I'll take any comments that people have on what I've shared. If they don't, we will proceed along those lines. Is anyone?
Nothing to add, Chair. Just happy to agree with yourself.
Okay. Everyone content? Okay. Agreed. Okay, so then we're going to go through some of the SRs and I think an SL that we have to get through. So item 11 is SR 2025-194, the U5390 Churchill Jonesborough Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2025. That is on pages 553 to 559, and then there's table papers at page 108, which is the Examiner Statutory Rules report. The rule is subject to negative resolution, and we have had departmental responses which are fairly comprehensive. Committee had considered this at its meeting on the 3rd of December. Committee agreed that it was Kent with the SR, notwithstanding Justin's obviously, I think I probably call it dissent, I'm not sure. Justin, you could characterise that yourself, but Justin made some representations regarding this. Then the minutes were agreed on the 10th. Just need to remind members that the purpose of this rule is to abandon an area of 21 square metres at Churchill Jonesborough at a point 62 metres northeast of its junction with Churchill Road. On the coming into operation of this rule, the department will no longer be responsible for the maintenance of the area of the road in question, and the public right-of-way shall be extinguished. The rule will come into operation on the 4th of February 2025. The Examiner of Statutory Rules has reported on the rule and has no comment to make on it. I need to inform members that the committee considered the proposal on its meeting 3rd December and was content with the following clarification on a number of issues sought by the committee from the department. Are members content with this statutory rule? Justin?
It's consented to force retrospectively.
It says 4th February 2025. I could well be the 4th of February 2026. Typo, good spot there, Justin.
I'm absolutely vehemently opposed to this based on the householders' concerns.
Yep.
And so I want to just again reiterate my opposition.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely fine, and that will be noted in the minutes, Justin. I would hope that you're not going to force us to like a vote on this issue, but what we can do, what we can do is record, obviously, your complete opposition to this. I could ask other members, are they otherwise content with this?
Yeah.
There's sort of
well, I mean,
bits of shrugging and so forth.
I think we did agree, Chair, previously.
Yeah, we did.
Justin has more insight and knowledge of this than I certainly would do. I'm going on the recommendation more than anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, noting the fact that Justin is opposed to it, but he's not going to force it to a vote on this SR. I will then take it that members are content with that caveat, and we'll read out the following: that the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2025-194, the U5390 Churchill Road, Jonesborough Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2025, and has no objection to the rule. Item 12. SLs. SR is not subject to assembly procedure. Need to advise members that there are two SRs that are not subject to assembly proceedings and are not requiring to be laid. These are on pages 561 to 567 of the meeting pack and are SR 2025-196, the Parking Places Disabled Persons Vehicles Amendment Number 6, Order Northern Ireland 2025, and SR 2025-200, the Schools Part-Time 20-mile-per-hour Speed Limit Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2025. I need to remind committee members that the committee noted the proposal for these rules at its meetings on the 26th of November and the 10th of December. Are you content to note the statutory rules? Item 13 is SL1, the On-Street Parking Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2026. Do you want me to bring you in on this one? Not at this point, Michael?
Yes, just to inform members that this is result from the RHI inquiry. The Chairperson's Liaison Group agreed to a new process for the processing of delegated legislation. And that's been agreed by the Executive Office as well. So basically the department brings forward SL1s, so proposals for delegated legislation, and then they're noted by the committee, and then they go to a public consultation on Citizen Space on the website, which the staff do. And following that, there's then a 4-week minimum of 4 weeks between being noted by the committee and then considered by the committee, unless the department requests otherwise. And then once it's considered, the SL1 is considered. If the committee is content, then it comes back as an SR. So basically, the committee sees it 3 times. But also it means there's time for consultation. So that was one recommendation. The other one was around scrutiny. So this was to increase scrutiny of delegated legislation. The other thing that we received in the committee was an extra resource in the shape of Aoife here, our very able scrutineer who assists us with scrutiny of delegated legislation and with any other legislation plus budget scrutiny.
Excellent.
E for the Scrutineer, sounds like something out of a 19th century naval novel. Okay, that's very useful, Michael, and it is about, so in summary of what Michael just said, it's about high levels of scrutiny. So, notwithstanding, I need to seek agreement for the committee to issue a call for views for each SL1 received using the standard survey and to publish the SL1, the proposed draft statutory rule, and any relevant documents provided by the department on the committee's website. These are at page 569, the clerk's memo on the on-street parking amendment order Northern Ireland 2026, at page 571, the on-street parking amendment order Northern Ireland 2026, and at page 573, the draft order SR 2026, the on-street parking amendment order Northern Ireland 2026. And I need to get committee agreement to note the receipt of these SL1s and proposed draft statutory rule, and that the committee is happy that these will be published as part of its call for views on the proposal. Do I have committee agreement?
Content.
We are at item 14. SL1, the Road Races Circuit of Ireland Rally Order Northern Ireland 2026. This is at pages 576 of your committee pack, at pages 578 to 585 of your committee pack, and at page 586, and that contains the draft order. I have to ask members if they are content with the proposal for the statutory rule, and if so, to note receipt of the SL1 and proposed draft statutory rule, and these will be published as part of its call for views on the proposal. Are committee members agreed?
Agreed.
That takes us to item 15, which is the forward work programme, and that is at page 596. And I need to seek committee agreement to proceed with the evidence sessions as set out in the draft forward work programme, and that will reflect any decisions taken today. Are committee members agreed?
Agreed, Chair.
Okay. Michael, or does that take us back to?
That takes us back to item 8, the active travel delivery plan of the officials.
So we have a couple of options here, folks. Johnny's going to warm them up. We can certainly hear. Are they still outside, Johnny? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be pushed for time in terms of hearing their presentation and asking questions, because my understanding is that education will want to move in here in less than half an hour.
I know the chair.
So you know the chair, you can text them. Okay, so we got a couple of options. Probably the most obvious one is to have the folks back in, listen to the presentation, and then have a range of questions that we can put together and we probably send to them. I don't think we'll have time for a full session. Or if the other alternative is we have them in and we just run all the way to half one. Do members have any thoughts they want to do?
Chair, given the interest in this subject and how long the first one went, I think it would probably be optimistic that we would get a full range of questions in. So I think, in my humble opinion, listen to the presentation in between us. We can either compile today or submit by email potentially a range of questions combined as a committee that would get the nuts and bolts of it and hopefully receive this back if they're happy with that course of action.
Okay.
I don't want to create more work, but I'm just conscious of the time.
Just a devil's advocate. Conscious that Cycling UK, I would deal with them quite a lot in terms of the all-party group and active travel.
Yep.
I remember months ago, and not getting anybody here in terms of diary or anything like that, but I'm conscious they haven't been in, so we can maybe have them in another session to talk about this. It's gone through the local councils I saw in the pack, so we're kind of just tidying up a little bit in some respects, but getting them in alongside someone like Cycling UK, maybe even the Walking Wheel and Cycling Trust, that could be beneficial in terms of questions, because you're better just doing the questions verbally, I think, rather than just written answers, you know.
Okay.
And just as another option.
Are you suggesting, through you to the chair, to not take the presentation today and wait for
yeah,
all of
we've
it?
got other business that we need to tidy up as well, rather than them rushing through a presentation and then cobbling together a couple of questions within 25 minutes.
Yeah, so we're good for business today, Peter. The Cycling UK thing, they have submitted a request, and that's, as far as I know, that's been diary. So we're going to have Cycling UK, and I know that they were in the background there today. So I think it's important that we will have them in to hear evidence, and we're going to get that. We're going to get that sorted. My sense from you is that we're probably better to park it and perhaps have them in at a session together, not presenting together, but have them in and have Cycling UK, and then take the consultation, the oral evidence on the consultation. Is that what you prefer?
Just as an option, I think, rather than rushing through. I mean, happy to get them in and listen to them and draft up questions as well. I was just thinking that could be another option too.
Yeah.
I have no problem, assuming that our bandwidth as a committee and the full work programme allows for the space. I'm sure our excellent clerks will be able to assist.
It can be accommodated.
Yeah, that's well. In that case, I'm happy. I don't want to stand in the way of any proposal in that respect.
Okay. Well, on that basis, then we will we'll let the officials know just that they'll just to come back sometime, and that they will hopefully give us evidence on the consultation and their views on that, and then we'll try and schedule that with Cycling UK and hear that.
Leave the dance party.
And
that's new there for you. That's new there for the SDL.
You walked into that one, Justin. Right, okay, so I think that is taking us then to any other business. And Militia, sorry, AOB or something else?
No, just Chair, I have to leave the meeting, so my apologies.
It's okay. It's okay. It's absolutely fine, Militia. You're not the first. Others have gone before you, literally. So AOB, have any members any AOB they wish to raise? Justin.
Sure, thank you. Members may have seen on the national media over recent days the Newry Next proposal, whereby potentially 6,000 homes could be built between Newry and Banbridge, Newry Warren Point, opening up a whole new paradigm on this island in terms of collaboration, in terms of how this island operates, where via funding mechanisms being accessed, potentially shared island, potentially interreg, we can overcome the obstacles to development, primarily housing, which are infrastructurally related. And I think it's worth exploration. I think it maybe merits this committee speaking to the Newry Next composers, so to speak, the Newry Next document writers, that's Pascal Taggart and Gerard Prentas, I can't pronounce that name, who've come up with this idea and proposal. And I've been working in the background with these folk. I just think it's a massively ambitious proposal, but one that sorts out problems north and south, and one that this island could be proud of delivering, and making Newry the new Malmo. And I'm wondering if this
the new
Malmo. I'm wondering if this committee
Malmo, yeah.
I'm wondering if this committee is interested in exploring that and having an information or evidence session from said people.
That's
happy to go to Malmo, Chair.
Yep. A research visit to Malmo, which I think is in Sweden, is it?
It is. Yeah, it is in Sweden. Many times.
Okay, absolutely fine.
Nice bridge.
Thank you for that, Justin. If you want to communicate with Newry Next and ask them to submit some evidence into the committee, they can write to me, they can write to the clerk. And usually what happens is that I'll get cited on it, make sure John gets cited on it as well, and then we sort of would assess the evidence, and then we'll bring it to the committee as to whether they want to, it'll be a committee decision as to whether they want to hear oral evidence, but we'll certainly get it in a packet. Are you happy with that, Justin? 100%. Anyone got anything?
Was it the Irish Times, Justin, that? I can't remember which weekend. I saw it in one of them, can't remember which one, but there's a good article, Chair, it's easy find.
John, thank you.
So it is. It's a good article, to be fair. It's a good piece. So I would.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll all have a look at it. Peter.
Members may have seen over the weekend in North Belfast where Gary McMahon lost his life last year, a cyclist that was hit by a lorry. That there were 3 sets of traffic lights that went down, and they sat broken for 3 days. I think police called out at a stage to just direct traffic. Haven't really been able to see in the media why that happened, why that was allowed to continue for 3 days straight, having 3 sets of traffic signals not operating in a really built-up junction where, as I say, someone was injured, but last year someone lost their life. So it might be helpful just to send the correspondence off to DFI to find out a bit more about that.
Okay, we are on the verge of quorum. Are members content that we write to DFI regarding that and just ask for some clarity around that? No other business. Okay, agreed. Date, time and location next meeting. Just need committee agreement for the next meeting to take place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 21st of January 2026 in room 29, Parliament Buildings. Are members agreed? Yes. Agreed. And therefore I will adjourn the meeting.
Committee room 29. Sound.